Xiang Beifei, based on the known clues, roughly speculated his grandfather's plan to revive the human race. The human race couldn't survive in the edge-corner airspace, so he and Taoist Qingyang planned for humanity's future by migrating humans to the Great Desolate Realm. Taoist Qingde first utilized the ancestral artifact, the Great Cauldron, to protect every human from the influence of the heavenly Tao in the Great Desolate Realm, allowing them to live freely there. Then, let the human race begin their cultivation from the Qi-controlling realm in the Great Desolate Realm, and when the talents of humanity reach the Heavenly Connection Realm, take them to the edge-corner airspace to cut the Tao and step into the immortal realm, cultivating more immortal realm masters this way. If their talent was poor, they would live in the Great Desolate Realm until old age, no need to return to the edge-corner airspace. Usually, Taoist Qingde and Taoist Qingyang would intermittently head to the edge-corner airspace to collect treasures, elixirs, and such from various races to distribute among the human race. The beacon is used to guide the human race on how to reach the edge-corner airspace. As for the Great Cauldron that protects the human race, perhaps for certain reasons, it couldn't be taken to the Great Desolate Realm, so Taoist Qingde left it in the Common Valley, where it is safest. At the start, everything should have gone smoothly. Surely, Taoist Qingde would occasionally come to the edge-corner airspace, search for elixir resources to put into the Great Cauldron, using its ability to assist the Zhuzhou people in cultivation. Unfortunately, later this matter was accidentally discovered by the Tao Palace. The Great Cauldron fell into crisis, causing Taoist Qingde to go to the Common Valley. This is the reason for the battle at the Common Valley with Wufeng. That battle was too tragic, resulting in many ancestral artifacts like Wufeng, the brick, the Great Cauldron, and others being shattered, and Taoist Qingde being seriously injured. After understanding this matter, Xiang Beifei felt deeply for his grandfather. Because the true God who once protected the entire Zhuzhou, after suffering severe injuries and losing memory, became an insignificant old man, selling vegetables in the market and raising his grandson, sometimes even being bullied. The people of Zhuzhou couldn't have imagined that their savior would encounter such a fate. Xiang Beifei and Luo Shanyu fell silent, while Haifuyu looked at Luo Shanyu in surprise and said, "Looking at the current situation, your son seems to be a spy planted in Zhuzhou by the Tao Palace?" "He was sent by the Tao Palace. He is my son, not any Zhuzhou spy," Luo Shanyu retorted coldly. Haifuyu said calmly, "But from their conversation, it seems your son has already believed himself to be part of the Hudu tribe, and it's him who brings danger to your so-called Zhuzhou human race." Luo Shanyu had no way to refute this fact. Xiang Beifei said solemnly, "No need to overthink. It's possible he's merely controlled by some heavenly Tao divine pattern, causing him to believe he is a spy sent by the Hutu tribe. This is the only possibility. Luo Changbai originally chose to seal the whirlpool on the other side for Zhuzhou, but now clearly loyal to the Tao Palace. He must have had his mind confused by the ancestral artifact, changing his original intentions." They did not speak further but hid to observe these two, hoping to find an opportunity. It's best to find a way to take this Great Cauldron away. Otherwise, the fate of the Zhuzhou people would be controlled by this Great Cauldron. But they also knew taking the Great Cauldron was extremely difficult. Wu Zhejiu was a late-stage ancestral Tao expert. Luo Changbai also had mid-stage ancestral Tao strength. Taking them down was impossible, especially since making a move would draw all nearby Tao Palace ancestral Tao realm elders, leaving them nowhere to escape. Moreover, Wu Zhejiu and Luo Changbai didn't give any chance. They kept imbuing treasures from other races with special powers, and then transferred them to the Great Cauldron, letting these things be better passed to Zhuzhou. After waiting for half an hour, Wu Zhejiu and Luo Changbai had handled all the treasures. But what made Xiang Beifei anxious was Wu Zhejiu and Luo Changbai settled down to meditate without choosing to leave. The two seemed to be cultivating while also guarding the Great Cauldron without leaving its side, clearly aware that if Wufeng came, the primary target would certainly be the Great Cauldron. As Xiang Beifei and the others were waiting, suddenly a powerful aura descended from the abyss above, appearing here. It was a woman wrapped in brown dust. Her complexion was like congealed cream, of national beauty, causing the dust to seem like a light veil draped over her body, appearing ethereal and enchanting. Tao Holder, Wu Shuyao. Tao Embryo, Huda Tao. Cultivation stage. Mid-stage ancestral Dao. Another mid-stage ancestral Dao expert. Master Zhejiu. Wu Shuyao slightly offered a salute. What is it? Wu Zhejiu opened his eyes and asked. Wu Shuyao's beautiful eyes glanced at Luo Changbai, then said, Something is amiss. I just patrolled once and found Wu Duankong has lost contact. Wu Duankong. Wu Zhejiu frowned. I remember he was managing the Litian spear. Yes, he was managing the Litian spear, originally guarding near Heavenly Thunder Venerable's skeletal remains, waiting for the ancestral artifact. But when I went over, there was a fierce battle at that place, and both Heavenly Thunder Venerable and that troublesome brick have disappeared. The ancestral artifact disappeared from Common Valley. Could it only be restored to complete form and taken by Wu Duankong? Wu Zhejiu asked. Wu Shuyao slightly shook her head. If he took it, he would according to habit send a message to us. But I haven't received any message from him. I asked some Dao holders, and from their findings, the Thunder Dao race repaired the Heavenly Thunder Venerable's skeletal ancestral artifact. Then suddenly a battle erupted. The Thunder Bone is the purest form of the Thunder Dao ancestral weapon, sealed with a thunderbolt. It can't possibly be a match for Wu Duankong with the Litian spear, Wu Zhejiu said. That's the issue. Wu Duankong should easily defeat the Thunder Bone ancestral weapon, but it seems he's failed. Later I went on patrol, only to find that Wu Dian, who was guarding the Ruishui River, also lost contact, and the Ruishui River is gone, Wu Shuyao said. The Ruishui River is gone? Not only the Ruishui River, but even Wufeng and others have disappeared and couldn't be contacted, as if someone is silently hunting our people right under our noses, Wu Shuyao said. Is it Wufeng? Luo Changbai said from the other side. Wu Shuyao glanced at Luo Changbai again, then said, It's possible. He may have dealt with the ancestral Dao realm experts we sent. If they were killed, there should be a reaction from the resurrected ancestral weapon. I went to inquire about it, but there was no reaction from the ancestral weapon, meaning Wufeng might have captured them alive, and could be exploring his way here at any moment, Wu Shuyao said. Wufeng. The aura around Wu Zhejiu seemed to grow more agitated, with the red tendrils on him almost igniting like fireworks. That name brought enormous trouble to their Hutu tribe 40 years ago. If not for the resurrected ancestral weapon, the damage to the Dao Palace would have been severe. Warn everyone, stay on guard, and avoid any more incidents, Wu Zhejiu commanded. Yes. Wu Shuyao bowed in response, then transformed into a brown beam of light, disappearing into the abyss. Wu Zhejiu's aura remained agitated, involuntarily recalling that battle 40 years ago. Wufeng's immense power from that battle was unforgettable for them, and if not for a stronger ancestral weapon on their side, they would have been helpless against that guy. He still harbored fears about Wufeng, as he was one of Wufeng's defeated opponents back then, neither killed nor fully alive after their clash. After painstakingly recovering over the years, now it seemed Wufeng was indeed planning to reclaim his broken sword and this great cauldron ancestral weapon. If Wufeng comes, how likely are we to capture him? Luo Changbai asked. In the last battle, we broke his long sword ancestral weapon and shattered his 5 pieces of stone. He lost 2 ancestral weapons, and his power is no longer what it used to be. If he dares to come this time, he won't leave alive. Wu Zhejiu's aura continued to tremble, emanating a fierce killing intent, making the air in the abyss heated and causing the heavenly Dao divine patterns surrounding the great cauldron to manifest under the influence. Luo Changbai said coolly, though he's missing Wufeng and the 5 pieces of stone, if this is truly his doing, then the Litian spear and Thunderbone ancestral weapon might be in his hands, and he remains powerful. Underestimating a master who once brought our Dao Palace to its knees is unwise. Wu Zhejiu was displeased upon hearing this. Yet he knew Luo Changbai spoke the truth. After a moment, Wu Zhejiu seemed to recall something. With a strange smile crossing his lips, he looked at Luo Changbai and said, What strategies do you have to deal with Wufeng? Tell me. Luo Changbai said indifferently, Start with his target. If I were Wufeng, this great cauldron would be of utmost importance, as it concerns the fate of the entire human race. so I would focus on it. We've been guarding it, Wu Zhejiu emphasized. Guarding it isn't enough. He's clearly more prepared this time, and if his strength has surpassed that of 40 years ago, then the battle would only be a reenactment of 40 years ago. So what's your point? This great cauldron ancestral weapon is currently broken, bound by the power of the common valley. Wu Feng is very likely to come with fragments, restore it, and then take it away. We can't let that happen. Luo Changbai spoke with clear logic, pausing before saying slowly, the best way is to knock off another fragment of this ancestral weapon, hold it ourselves, so even if Wu Feng comes with the 2 cauldron legs, he won't be able to take away the cauldron. And then we have the chance to go all out and kill him. Wu Zhejiu's eyes brightened. He hadn't considered this before. Brilliant! Brilliant! Wu Zhejiu looked at Luo Changbai with deep meaning, finding this idea indeed excellent. Since the ancestral weapon was broken, its power was greatly reduced. They guarded the broken ancestral weapon, waiting for others to bring the fragments so they could reap the reward. But this great cauldron was special. It was more like a trap set for Wu Feng. If they broke off another fragment from the already broken ancestral weapon, then even if Wu Feng brought 2 fragments, the cauldron wouldn't be complete, and he still couldn't take the cauldron, keeping them in control. But breaking the great cauldron might reduce its controlling ability over the Dao embryo system. I need to confirm this properly. Can't afford to focus on one thing and lose another. Wu Zhejiu approached the great cauldron, assessing the ancestral weapon's abilities, looking for a spot that wouldn't affect the divine pattern's functions. He had been guarding this ancestral weapon for a long time and was familiar with it, knowing exactly how each part exerted power, quickly locking onto a place. This is it. A flash of light crossed Wu Zhejiu's hand, gripping a sharp dagger firmly. This dagger exuded a profound and powerful aura, seemingly ordinary in appearance. Yet any ancestral Dao realm expert could see at a glance the formidable power of this ancestral weapon. Swish! Wu Zhejiu swung, the dagger slicing the cauldron, shaving off a piece. This gap was small, only the size of a thumb, yet enabled them to obtain a 3rd fragment without harming the cauldron's essence. This is bad, Xiaohe whispered urgently. Xiang Beifei, who had been hiding in a corner waiting for an opportunity, also fell silent, his heart growing heavy. They hadn't expected Luo Changbai to suddenly pull such a trick, and now Wu Zhejiu had further dismembered the ancestral weapon, already lacking 2 cauldron legs. This meant that even if Xiang Beifei could gather the 2 cauldron legs, he still couldn't restore the cauldron, and couldn't take it away. Hai Fuyu looked at Luo Shanyu and said indifferently, "Your son is outstanding." He was stating a fact, yet it sounded like mockery. Luo Shanyu clenched his fists, his nails digging into his flesh out of anger. He hadn't anticipated that this time, the trouble would come from his own son. Luo Changbai's scheming with Wu Zhejiu had made it much harder for them to reclaim the cauldron. Hai Fuyu said, "I won't beat around the bush. That Luo Changbai is one issue due to the ancestral weapon controlling his thoughts, but the key is how you plan to deal with him, because you don't know which ancestral weapon is controlling his mind, and it's impossible to easily seize it. That means this person will surely stand against you. No matter how you persuade, he's still loyal to the Dao Palace. And this person, very clear-headed and very smart, knows everything about Zhozhou and the Dao Palace, making him the Dao Palace's top strategist. As the human race contends with the Dao Palace, you don't stand a chance." Hai Fuyu's eyes shifted between Xiang Beifei and Luo Shanyu, his voice becoming stern and cold. "Originally, how the human race behaved was none of my concern, but now that we're on the same front, I must say, if this person is not eliminated, the human race will face utter destruction." Hai Fuyu's words were sharp but struck at the heart of the matter. Luo Shanyu remained silent, but he took a deep breath, his expression becoming very solemn. "This is not something you need to worry about. If there's a chance, I'll kill him myself." His tone was surprisingly calm, seemingly devoid of any emotion. He was his son, a long-lost relative, yet they met in such a manner, standing on opposite sides, aiding the enemy against the human race. But he understood well that nothing was more important than the entire human race, not even his son. In his heart, the survival of the human race outweighed everything. He could sacrifice himself for the human race, and naturally, he could also sacrifice personal ties for the greater good. Hai Fuyu looked at Luo Shanyu with a peculiar gaze but said nothing more. "We should leave," Xiang Beifei said. There was no opportunity left now. The people of the Dao Palace had already discovered they were hunting elders, and they would surely increase their vigilance next. With Wu Zhejiu in the late ancestral Dao period and Luo Changbai, whose cultivation had inexplicably surged to the mid-ancestral Dao period, both of whom they couldn't defeat. No matter what means the Dao Palace would employ next, it was not something they could interfere with directly. With a significant disparity in power, leaving was the best option. They needed to go back and plan carefully. The three of them flew silently towards the sky above the abyss, avoiding the heavenly Dao patterns here, returning to the ground, and then flew out without looking back. Woofing Broken Sword or even the Broken Foot Great Cauldron were both left far behind them. To avoid unnecessary troubles, Xiang Beifei did not linger further in Common Valley. He knew the route out well, quickly mingling into the crowd, and then followed the aura left by the two giant spirits to find them. "How is it? Did you resolve your matters?" Zhai Kong asked. Xiao He said seriously, "Things aren't resolved. More trouble has emerged." "What trouble? Do you need us to step in?" Zhai Kong asked. Xiang Beifei shook his head. "This is not something you can solve. It needs careful planning." He glanced around, then asked, "Where's Li?" "You mean that girl? She appeared a while ago, asked us to pass a message to you, and left," Feng said. "What did she say?" Xiang Beifei frowned. "She said she needed to do something and not to wait for her. She will come find you in a while," Feng said. "Did she say what she needed to do?" Xiang Beifei asked. "No, she seemed very serious, preoccupied," Feng replied. Xiang Beifei fell into deep thought. This girl, always so secretive, and now she's leaving without a word. But he also knew that Li Chenluo was someone who had a sense of propriety in her actions. Despite her bold personality, she was meticulous and wouldn't act recklessly. "Oh right. She asked me to give this to you, said you might find it useful." Zhai Kong took out a golden lotus from his bosom and handed it to Xiang Beifei. This golden lotus was only half the size of a palm, just a bud, not yet bloomed, emitting a faint golden light. "What is this?" Xiang Beifei took the golden lotus and examined it closely. Zhai Kong shrugged, saying, "I'm just the messenger." Xiang Beifei pondered for a moment, not immediately inspecting the golden lotus, but putting it away, then glanced back at Common Valley and said, "Let's go, leave this place." They quickly distanced themselves from this place, flying outward. After a whole day's journey, they returned to the Kangji Abyss. Regardless of the current situation in Edge Corner airspace, they had no intention of managing it anymore. Xiang Beifei was not in a hurry to follow Feng and Zhai Kong to find the old giant spirit. He had to arrange matters for the human race first. In the void near Kangji Abyss, he sensed the power of the ancestral Dao realm of the heavenly thunder venerable within him, pondered for a moment, and his body began to glow with a blue light. Lightning spread through his body, forming strands of divine patterns. Buzz! The lightning divine pattern was drawn out from his body, gradually forming a skeleton in the air. As expected, it was the heavenly thunder venerable. "Can I still retain my consciousness?" The orbits of the heavenly thunder venerable skeletal frame lit up with lightning, seeming quite surprised. When he had chosen to transform into a divine pattern to be swallowed by Xiang Beifei, he thought he should lose his consciousness, that there would be no more him, heavenly thunder venerable, in the world. But he hadn't expected Xiang Beifei not to do so. The heavenly thunder venerable glanced around, seeing Xiang Beifei to one side. "Why?" he asked, puzzled. "Why what? I thought after gaining the divine pattern, you would devour my consciousness and occupy my power." The heavenly thunder venerable said. "I prefer relying on my own strength," Xiang Beifei said. The heavenly thunder venerable scrutinized Xiang Beifei and said, "You're only at the ascending Dao stage. This is only temporary. Xiang Beifei replied simply. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable was slightly taken aback, then suddenly laughed heartily, nodding. You indeed don't need to rely on my power. Xiang Beifei could have completely erased the Heavenly Thunder Venerable's consciousness and taken over his power entirely. The thunder power of the mid-ancestral Dao stage, to many, was almost unattainable, and no one would willingly give up such a formidable power. But Xiang Beifei was different, because, for Xiang Beifei, he was merely leveraging the Heavenly Thunder Venerable's realm, only able to wield thunder-related attacks. For him, this was far from enough. He needed to cultivate to the ancestral Dao realm relying on his own abilities. As long as he cultivated to the ancestral Dao realm, the power he could wield would rise to another level. With the current ancestral artifacts he had, then he would have the opportunity to truly engage the Dao Palace head-on. I have a question, Xiang Beifei said. Just ask without hesitation. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable replied cheerfully. At the time, how did you know I could control the Heavenly Dao? Xiang Beifei asked. Because there was once a powerful existence who told me that Yin-Yang source energy is the key to mastering the Heavenly Dao. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable said. Who is this person? Xiang Beifei asked. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable lightly shook his head. In front of him, I am too insignificant. He is an existence I must look up to. I do not know his identity, only that he comes from the end of the world. From the end of the world? Then it's not Xiang Tianxing, because Xiang Tianxing is headed to the end of the world. It doesn't seem to be Grandpa either, as Grandpa doesn't appear to be from the end of the world. Then who could it be? Xiang Beifei did not dwell on it further. He waved his hand and released 2 members of the Thunder Dao race. During the Common Valley incident, they used the broken finger of the Heavenly Thunder Venerable to restore the skeletal ancestral artifact to completeness, but their strength was limited, and they were nearly killed by Wu Duankong. Lei Tianze and the other person still seemed shaken, but upon seeing the Heavenly Thunder Venerable, they immediately became excited and fell to the ground, respectfully saying, Greetings, old ancestor. You should thank this human race friend. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable said. The human race. Lei Tianze was slightly taken aback, looking at Xiang Beifei with vigilance. The human race, in any race within Edgecorner airspace, is a race that must not be approached because the Dao Palace issued a pursuit order against the human race. Any race associated with the human race would face unimaginable consequences. Lei Tianze, being the highest cultivation elder in the inquiring Dao realm among the Thunder Dao race, dared not gamble with the fate of the entire race. However, the Heavenly Thunder Venerable snorted coldly and said, The Dao Palace wants to destroy me. This human race friend saved me. Can you not distinguish between friend and foe? Lei Tianze recalled the powerful methods of Wu Duankong, having witnessed the entire process. Understanding that the person who attacked the Heavenly Thunder Venerable was from the Dao Palace. He quickly said, Please, old ancestor, do not be angry. I had no such intention. He turned around and gave Xiang Beifei a deep bow, saying, Thank you, Dao friend, for your assistance. Your great kindness and virtue will never be forgotten. Xiang Beifei waved his hand, gesturing for him to rise. Now, our Thunder Dao race has essentially torn the face off with the Dao Palace. They will not let our Thunder Dao race go. Only by following the Heavenly Dao can our Thunder Dao race survive. The light in the skull eye sockets of the Heavenly Thunder Venerable was burning as he looked at Xiang Beifei. I earnestly request the Dao friend to take in our Thunder Dao race. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable bowed deeply. Lei Tianze, seeing the old ancestor treating Xiang Beifei with such respect, did not dare to neglect him, also bowing in obeisance. If the Thunder Dao race wants to ally with our human race, I naturally do not oppose it, but the situation within your own Thunder Dao race might not agree. You must resolve it yourselves, Xiang Beifei said. Rest assured, with my position, no one in the Thunder Dao race would dare to disobey. The Heavenly Thunder Venerable emitted a fierce and stern aura, with lightning starting to coalesce around him, quickly forming flesh and blood over his bones, restoring his original appearance. This was a ferocious-looking elder, with hair and beard all white, each strand seemingly flickering with electric light, exuding authority without anger. This was the true appearance of the heavenly Thunder Venerable. Under this oppressive aura, Lei Tianzi was reverent and dared not breathe a single breath. After all, the heavenly Thunder Venerable controlled the heavenly Tao divine mark. With this mark, he could fully master the entire Thunder Tao race. Under his thunderous might, all members of the Thunder Tao race could only yield. Be careful when you go out. Don't let other ancestral artifacts swallow you again, Xiang Beifei said. The state of the heavenly Thunder Venerable was very special now, being both a person and an ancestral artifact. Don't worry. The lightning divine mark on the heavenly Thunder Venerable transformed into a blue swift light, landing on Xiang Beifei, establishing a connection with him, effectively attaching himself to Xiang Beifei like how Hai Fuyu did. This way, even if I encounter an ancestral artifact, it cannot swallow me. If you are in danger, you can contact me immediately, and I will rush over, the heavenly Thunder Venerable said. Good. Then go handle your own race's matters. You can migrate the entire Thunder Tao race to a location near the human race for better protection. And remember, do not bring any breath soil. Xiang Beifei infused Yin-Yang source energy into the heavenly Thunder Venerable's body, enough to protect him from reacting with other ancestral artifacts. I am aware of all this. Without delay, the heavenly Thunder Venerable waved his large hand, sweeping up the two Thunder Tao race members, instantly vanishing into the void, heading towards the Thunder Tao race. Luo Shanyu watched the direction in which the heavenly Thunder Venerable disappeared and asked, after they migrate here, do we need to provide mustard seed and palm for them? Xiang Beifei shook his head. No need. The heavenly Thunder Venerable is an ancestral artifact, controlling Thunder Tao. They can fully rely on thunder to deal with the devouring power of the void. I will set up some formations later to protect them from being discovered by the Tao Palace. Let me do it, Luo Shanyu said. His son was now under the control of the Tao Palace, almost becoming an eternal sinner of the human race. He had to do something for the human race to make amends. No need, Master Uncle, rest. You need to adjust to the strength left by my grandfather, as it relates to the strength of our human race, Xiang Beifei said. Luo Shanyu recalled something and said, speaking of this power, the strength left by Taoist Qingde should also be returned to you. This power completely matches you and can help you quickly break through to the ancestral Tao realm. I do not need anyone arranging how I should cultivate. I cultivate quickly and do not need to worry about these things. Our race needs more experts, and you must absorb this power, Xiang Beifei said. But I am not negotiating with you. This is an order. Xiang Beifei raised his voice, carrying an irresistible authority. Luo Shanyu was shaken by Xiang Beifei's momentum, the authority of the human king affecting his spirit, leaving him with no thought of resistance under such momentum. Luo Changbai must also have reached such high cultivation through external aid. If you want to deal with this trouble, you also need to elevate your strength. Furthermore, do not act alone, nor are you allowed to privately seek out Luo Changbai. All actions must be based on my orders. Xiang Beifei's voice resonated like a great bell in Luo Shanyu's mind. Luo Shanyu could not resist the order. He was originally a stellar death warrior, loyal to the human king, a trait carved into his soul, something he could not defy. He struggled for a long time, eventually bowing and saying, Yes, I obey. Luo Shanyu got up and went towards Kangji Abyss. Having managed these matters, Xiang Beifei had to consider what to do next. There were many things he needed to consider. The most important point was, based on what Wu Zhizhou mentioned, there was already a spy from the Tao Palace among Zhizhou, which was crucial, as if this mole wasn't dealt with, Luo Yunxian would be in danger. Feifei, who will you say that spy is? Xiaohe asked. Wu Zhizhou mentioned that the person has already infiltrated Zhizhou. Xiang Beifei said, This is the most important point, because if this spy is not caught, Luo Yunxian is in unimaginable danger. Luo Yunxian is a very powerful figure, with incredible authority and prestige. If they don't guard against this, the consequences are unthinkable. But despite the secrets and hidden enemies, Xiang Beifei could only wonder who the traitor could be. Xiao He rubbed his chin and said, "Someone we know? Also, someone very famous in Zhejiu?" The big villain Wu Zhejiu seems to have mentioned that the person has already infiltrated Zhejiu. Xiang Beifei didn't answer, his mood was terrible. Xiang Beifei couldn't determine who this person was. He couldn't even be sure when this person was controlled. There was no impression of this person in his mind. "Feifei, what do we do now? Should we return to Zhejiu first and find that traitor? Otherwise, what about Leisure Fish Old Master?" Era asked. Xiao He said beside him, "I think it's more important to elevate our cultivation, right? Feifei isn't at the ancestral Dao realm yet. But in Zhejiu, which is in the Great Desolate Realm, strength there doesn't require ancestral Dao realm people. An immortal realm over there is invincible." Era said. Xiao He seriously retorted, "The Great Desolate Realm has isolated the Edge Corner airspace people. It should be some kind of powerful heavenly Dao divine pattern. If Dao Palace is determined to destroy the human race, they will definitely look for the ancestral artifact sealing this heavenly Dao divine pattern. If by the time we rush back to Zhejiu and find that Dao Palace has already found this ancestral artifact, what do we do then?" Xiao He's concerns were not unfounded. At such a moment, he still believed that raising the cultivation level was most important. How long will it take for Feifei to reach the ancestral Dao realm? Era tilted his head and asked. "I can't guarantee." Xiang Beifei shook his head. "He's only at the Ascension realm now, and it will take some time to reach the ancestral Dao realm. For many, moving from Ascension realm to ancestral Dao realm is an extremely arduous road. Many may spend tens of thousands of years unable to break through that barrier. But it's different for Xiang Beifei. He cultivates very quickly. His enlightenment of Dao is unrivaled, with no obstacles in cultivation. But even so, it still takes time. By the way, at our speed, how long would it take to return to Zhejiu from Edge Corner airspace?" Xiao He asked. Era swung his tail and said, "Last time we came from Zhejiu to Edge Corner airspace, it took us more than 3 years. Almost 4 years. The road was very far. You fool, back then we stumbled all the way, starting to journey from Orifice Transforming Realm. The speed was slow. We hadn't even reached Heavenly Connection Realm in the early stages. But if we go back now, it shouldn't take 3 years. Xiao He said. Ascension Realm is much faster than our previous speed. Isn't it? At least 1,000 times faster. Let me count how much is 3 years divided by 1,000. Era started counting with his fingers. Couldn't make it. Then swung his tail. Not enough. He pulled out many leaves to help calculate. Yumong couldn't stand it and said, "So stupid. Can't you even calculate this? Nearly 1 to 2 days. You're the stupid one. I was about to figure it out without you saying it." Era said angrily. He knocked on Yumong, then said, "Since it only takes a little over a day, then why are we waiting? Let's go back." Xiao He said, "Are you stupid? Ascension Realm needs only 1 or 2 days, but the restrictions of the Great Desolate Realm simply don't allow you to travel so quickly. We can at most use the Heavenly Connection Realm's cultivation. The speed won't be as fast as the Ascension Realm. In fact, in the Great Desolate Realm, even the power of the Immortal Realm can't be used casually. At that time Taoist Qingde was in Hanxia. He maintained at the Heavenly Connection Realm, and Taoist Qingyang, to withstand the enemy, used the power of the Immortal Realm, which almost cost him his life. Xiang Beifei in the Great Desolate Realm only encountered the Eternal Night Demon King and Demon Tentacle King, who were Immortal Realm experts. But they were the ones sent by Dao Palace to hunt down the human race. Dao Palace has revival divine patterns. Even being erased by the Heavenly Dao doesn't matter. The Eternal Night Demon King and Demon Tentacle King simply wouldn't die. After being erased, they would probably recover in a few hundred years. But it's different for Taoist Qingyang. He almost died. So Heavenly Connection Realm was already the limit over there. Wait. Let me calculate the speed difference between Heavenly Connection Realm and previously. As if to save face, Era was ready to demonstrate his touching calculating ability again. No need to calculate, going back will probably also take a year. Xiang Beifei said. Damn. I said I could figure it out. Era rolled his eyes. Yumong mumbled. By the time you figure it out, we'll already be back in Zhejiu. Era glared at Yumong, wanting to bully him again, but Yumong dodged quickly, leaping onto Xiang Beifei's neck. holding on to Xiang Beifei tightly. With Xiang Beifei around, Era didn't dare act rashly. A year, that's not good news. Spending a year on the road seems very unwise, especially since it's uncertain whether Dao Palace has started acting against Zhuozhou by then either. Most importantly, even if he returns to Zhuozhou and exposes the Dao Palace traitor, what then? Xiang Beifei cannot cultivate in the Great Desolate Realm. Because of the restriction on power there, it doesn't allow him to cultivate to the ancestral Dao realm. This means he must depart from Zhuozhou again and return to Edge Corner airspace to cultivate. This equates to wasting 2 years of cultivation time, but after 2 years, he will still be at the Ascension realm. If Dao Palace acts at this time, he won't be able to compete with Dao Palace at the Ascension realm level. So he must cultivate first. Raise his cultivation to the ancestral Dao realm, then return to Zhuozhou. It's really a hassle to travel so far. If only there was a teleportation array, like the big cauldron vortex that whooshes from Zhuozhou to Common Valley in an instant. Era said lazily. Xiang Beifei furrowed his eyebrows, thinking of the Litian Spear. The Litian Spear has a very powerful heavenly Dao divine pattern. Teleportation array pattern. This teleportation array pattern is very powerful. It can teleport to any place. If he could rely on the teleportation array pattern of the Litian Spear, maybe he could directly teleport back to Zhuozhou. He immediately took out the 2 broken pieces of the Litian Spear from the Spirit Gathering book and stared at them in deep thought. The 2 broken pieces of the Litian Spear emitted a faint light when they met each other, struggling to restore themselves. After being broken, the 2 fragments of the Litian Spear suffered significant damage and lost much of their spirituality. Unlike before, when they were still aware in Sheen City, now their consciousness seemed to be dormant. It seems there is no way to negotiate a trade with this ancestral artifact. Xiang Beifei held them firmly, preventing them from restoring. The intact Litian Spear was powerful and rebellious, far beyond Xiang Beifei's current ability to control. Can you control it? Xiang Beifei turned to ask Hai Fuyu. Hai Fuyu had been leisurely watching the void, enjoying the freedom of returning to the Edge Corner airspace after 10,000 years, without speaking. The Litian Spear, intact, is very strong. In my current state, there's no chance for me. You need to find someone more powerful, Hai Fuyu said frankly. Do you think the Litian Spear could create a teleportation channel? To directly send me back to Zhuozhou? It has teleportation divine patterns, Xiang Beifei asked. Hai Fuyu pondered for a moment and said, It's hard to say. The suppressive forces on the side of the Great Desolate Realm are very powerful, and that Heavenly Dao's divine pattern might directly suppress the teleportation divine pattern. But that broken-legged Great Cauldron can create a teleportation channel between Zhuozhou and Common Valley, Xiang Beifei said. You need to consider many circumstances, such as whether the teleportation divine pattern is stronger than the limits of the Great Desolate Realm. From the current perspective, that cauldron is a very powerful ancestral artifact. It might be able to contend with the power of the Great Desolate Realm. It's hard to say. Hai Fuyu did not give a definite answer. Then we must try. Perhaps the Litian Spear can solve this problem, Xiang Beifei said. Then how will you handle the power of the Litian Spear if you let it become whole? You won't be able to control it, Hai Fuyu said. Person came to Xiang Beifei's mind. Old Giant Spirit. He could only think of this powerful giant because the other party was a terrifying existence whose power must surpass the strength of the Litian Spear. Maybe Old Giant Spirit could suppress the Litian Spear and attempt to control its teleportation divine patterns. When Hai Fuyu mentioned Old Giant Spirit, he slightly raised an eyebrow. There must have been some unpleasant conflict between him and Old Giant Spirit since the Giant Spirit race was trapped inside his body. But he said nothing about it since trapping Old Giant Spirit wasn't handled by him. Xiang Beifei made up his mind to seek help from Old Giant Spirit at Bone Mountain Desert Stone Cave. However, to be safe, he decided to prepare in 2 ways. We need to send someone back to Zhuozhou to inform them of the situation, and then visit Old Giant Spirit. This way, time won't be wasted, Xiang Beifei said. If the power of the Litian Spear is not enough to penetrate the teleportation array pattern, then they can also send someone ahead of time. Time is urgent now, and he must send the message back before the Dao Palace controls all of Zhuozhou. Xiaohe said, How about we ask Uncle Luo to go back to Jizhou to investigate this spy? We can disguise him with Daosheath and possibly use mustard seed in palm to camouflage. Xiang Beifei said, if my master didn't find out who the spy is, it would be hard for our uncle as well. You forget how those ghost mustache of remnant visage infiltrated Jizhou back then? They would never leave a trace. Back then, the organization Unrestrained was infiltrated by ghost mustache of remnant visage, mingling into a Wufu desolate beast research company, and no one found out. Even Xiang Beifei himself relied on controlling the system to discern who was human and who was a desolate beast. Especially now that the Dao Palace controlled the Great Cauldron, once they became aware of the system's existence, they might perfectly disguise themselves as Jizhou people through the system, and not even Xiang Beifei would be able to discern the real from the fake through the system. Sending Luo Shanyu back to Jizhou, he would also find it hard to discern. But Xiang Beifei indeed needed to send someone back to notify his master. Regardless of whether they could identify them, it's always wise to be cautious. Currently, Luo Shanyu needs to guard the human race and also adapt to the power of the ancestral Dao realm, which is crucial for the human race, and it's unsuitable to send him back. Xiang Beifei decided to find someone preferably familiar with Jizhou, to go back to Jizhou. From Kangji Abyss, there are quite a few people who came from Jizhou, so sending them back shouldn't be a problem. He immediately rushed to Kangji Abyss and explained the situation in detail to Fu Yuzi. Fu Yuzi was a mid-ascension realm expert, previously the highest cultivation in the human race, and he was also from Jizhou. Need someone to go back? Then I'll go. I'm familiar with the road back, and I can handle it, Fu Yuzi said solemnly. No, the human race here still needs your senior's help. We need to choose someone else, Xiang Beifei said. He himself was about to cultivate, so Kangji Abyss must have enough experts. Fu Yuzi is one of the core people of the human race and cannot leave. Fu Yuzi thought for a moment and said, then let Qian Qingba go. He came from Jizhou decades ago and has currently reached the late immortal realm. He should be fine. Then I'll ask him. No need to ask, he'll agree. It's our duty, Fu Yuzi said. Xiang Beifei nodded. Now, the human race is weak, and every elder here is striving to protect their people, even willing to sacrifice themselves, which has enabled humanity to survive under the pursuit of the Dao Palace until now. A phantom silently crossed the vast void. At this time, Xiang Beifei was tirelessly rushing to Bone Mountain Desert Stone Cave. Accompanying him, besides Feng and Zhaikong, were Hai Fuyu and Qian Qingba. Qian Qingba appeared very young, looking no more than 30 years old, but he actually lived for 400 years. He was once part of Unrestrained and later, unsatisfied with the post-heavenly connection limitations, followed Luo Shanyu to Edge Corner Airspace to find the truth about the system. He naturally knew Luo Yunxian, but due to his unrestrained identity, there wasn't much interaction. When he received the order to return to Jizhou, he almost without hesitation agreed immediately. On the way, Xiang Beifei kept briefing Qian Qingba about Jizhou since Qian Qingba had been away for decades. He couldn't claim to fully understand Jizhou. Fortunately, last time Xiang Beifei copied all the Jizhou files, which came in handy. He introduced the information about these people and told Qian Qingba how to find others, gain Elder Luo's trust, and who to focus on investigating, all explained in detail. Xiaohe was conversing with Zhaikong. How did you come? Through the edge of the great desolate realm. Feng answered, yes, we came trudging over mountains and valleys. Initially, there was a teleportation array at Bone Mountain Desert Stone Cave, linking the Edge Corner Airspace and Great Desolate Realm, but it was blocked by the clan leader, so we followed the Daosheath route to the Great Desolate Realm. Xiaohe asked, strange. I remember the opening of Common Valley was notified by the Dao Palace less than a month ago. Could you receive the message at Bone Mountain Desert Stone Cave? How could it be? We arrived long ago. In fact, just after you left, the clan leader had us come to Edge Corner Airspace as well. We've been here for more than a year, constantly looking for you. Later, the Dao Palace suddenly issued a notice. We sneaked in and met at Common Valley. Zhaikong said gruffly. That's not too bad then, Xiaohe said. After a day's journey, they finally arrived at the junction of Edge Corner Airspace and the Great Desolate Realm. Here, the aura of Feng and Zhaikong was constantly being suppressed. Sealing and staying would not allow them to pass, so they relied on Daoshith to make their way through this route in the Great Desolate Realm to handle certain strange matters. Feng and Zhai Kong quickly suppressed their cultivation and camouflaged themselves and Qian Qingba using Yin and Yang Qi. When returning to the Great Desolate Realm, everything seemed familiar. Familiar mountains, familiar primitive aura, familiar roars of desolate beasts. But it was different from the last time Xiang Beifei was in the Great Desolate Realm, because this time he clearly felt a powerful force permeating all around. This force seemed elusive. If one tried to sense it carefully, it couldn't be pinpointed, but it was there, like a tiger watching intently from afar, ready to pounce and annihilate with lightning speed if anyone showed a weakness. Such a powerful force. Xiang Beifei was now quite familiar with Heavenly Dao's power, so sensing this aura also made him involuntarily serious. Heavenly Dao's power was indeed strong, and even he didn't dare to confront it head-on. Previously, when he was in the Great Desolate Realm, his cultivation hadn't reached that level and he couldn't sense this force, but now it was different. Fortunately, the people here basically have the ability to protect themselves. He could protect himself using yin-yang energy. Feng and Zhai Kong crammed their rough and tough 1,000-meter bodies into a small stature, and Hai Fuyu turned himself into a divine pattern to avoid suspicion, returning to the Yu divine steel. As for Qian Qingba, he was currently relying on the mustard seed in palm to protect himself. For additional safety, Xiang Beifei also covered him with yin-yang energy and used special methods to allow Qian Qingba to temporarily use this yin-yang energy, which could help conceal his aura in times of danger. Because Xiang Beifei was flying all the way north, naturally on the way back he flew all the way south. They hurried south at the fastest speed, not bothering with desolate beasts in their path, sweeping them aside. The power of the Heavenly Connection Realm allowed them to travel almost unhindered in the Great Desolate Realm. However, their speed also slowed significantly, lacking the enchanting sensation of the Ascension Realm's ability to cover 1,000 miles with every step. According to Era's description, the current flying speed was like that of a turtle, similar to Yumong, which did not please Yumong much. I also have the initial strength of the Heavenly Connection, Yumong protested. So you're like a little turtle, what's wrong with that? Era smirked. I'm much faster than a turtle, Yumong retorted angrily. Era, your speed isn't much better, Xiaohe chimed in, unimpressed. At least I'm not the slowest. Whoever among us is the slowest is the fool, Era boasted. Yumong rolled his eyes. Brother Beifei really should have left you at the Kangji Abyss. The Kangji Abyss doesn't need me either, he. Ever since the human race reclaimed the mustard seed in palm that had been sealed, they could be self-reliant, resisting the devouring force of the void with the mustard seed in palm. Of course, the foundation was still reliant on Zhenmu, but once Era established the basics, everything else could be maintained with the mustard seed in palm. With the three youngsters bickering, the group flew tirelessly forward. This time, Xiang Beifei did not need to detour to Changpan Valley or the territory of the Moon God race, nor did he need to go to Changpan Valley to gather information as he did the last time, so their speed was relatively faster. After about 5 days of flying, they reached the vicinity of Bone Mountain Desert Stone Cave. This area was a wilderness where towering forests were shrouded in mist. One could faintly see birds taking off and landing, and occasionally hear the echoing roars of desolate beasts. Here was where he needed to part ways with Qian Qingba. Xiang Beifei handed the mound mark to Qian Qingba. With the mound spirit's presence, he could smoothly return to Zhuozhou. I have placed a mark on you. If that side's heavenly spear can be managed in time, I will teleport to you immediately and then take you to Zhuozhou. But if the heavenly spear's teleportation array does not work, you will have to endure about a year of traveling, Xiang Beifei explained. Rest assured, human king, I will accomplish this task, Qian Qingba assured, cupping his hands. That's good. The items I've given you, whether you use them yourself or give them to my mentors, it's all fine. Once you return to Zhuozhou, just assist my mentors for the time being. Xiang Beifei had gathered numerous powerful treasures in the Edge Corner airspace and left them for Qian Qingba to take back to Zhuozhou. Understood. Qian Qingba was well aware of his mission. Xiang Beifei searched and handed a seed to Qian Qingba. This seed was given by Elder Luo, which Xiang Beifei hadn't used since stepping into the heavenly connection realm, kept back as it contained his aura and was sufficient as a token. Qian Qingbo did not linger further and immediately headed in the direction of Siho. The great desolate realm was quite treacherous. Without the mound spirit's guidance, it was easy to lose one's way. After Qian Qingbo disappeared at the horizon, Xiang Beifei turned around and said, "We need to visit Elder Giant Spirit. This way." Feng and Zhai Kong navigated confidently forward, then flew toward the top of a high mountain cliff. Landing at the top, they saw a crooked-neck tree, which at a glance seemed no different from other ordinary trees, surrounded by similar foliage that would cause ordinary people not to give it a second look. But Feng walked up to this tree, placed his hand on the trunk, and the tree immediately lit up with a golden pattern. The entire tree was covered with golden lines, like countless golden chains wrapped around it. Then, at the place where Feng's hand touched, a golden chain broke, falling away as if a crack had appeared in the air. "You guys go inside first," Feng said. "I'll go first. I'm about to burst." Zhai Kong dashed forward eagerly, rushing in first. As soon as his body entered the crack, it rapidly grew at an observable speed until it was no longer visible, only that the crack was blocked by a bronze-colored wall. That was the heel of Zhai Kong. "Big dummy, you're blocking the way." Xiaohei kicked a wall and shouted. No idea if Zhai Kong heard or not, but that big foot moved aside, allowing Xiang Beifei and the others to step inside, with Feng closely following behind. Once everyone was inside, the gap slowly disappeared. "Ah-oh!" A gigantic roar echoed through the sky, like thunder blasting, making the air become restless. Looking up, there were two huge pillars dancing and colliding with each other, the ground rumbling loudly. It was a miracle it didn't collapse. "Is he dancing?" Xiaohei wondered, watching the two towering pillars mess around. Looking further up, the body wasn't visible. The giant spirit was too tall, standing so close you couldn't see the top at all. "He's pent up. Doesn't like Zatsa's small body." Feng, on the other hand, was a lot calmer. Zhai Kong jumped around for a moment, seemingly venting enough, then squatted down. A large face with no boundaries came down from the sky, like a piece of the sky collapsed. "I'll take you flying, let you feel what speed is." Zhai Kong roared in a buzzing voice. The sound waves almost blew everyone away. "Big dummy, can you be quieter?" Xiaohei covered his ears and slapped that big face, but Zhai Kong felt nothing, not even equivalent to a tickle, probably akin to bacteria kissing his face. "This is already his quietest," Feng said helplessly. Zhai Kong couldn't hear what Xiaohei was saying. He stretched out a finger, but even this finger was frighteningly thick, his palm visible thousands of meters high. A single finger was hundreds of meters long. Feng didn't change size because Xiang Beifei and the others were too small. It wasn't good if he got big too, so he held back from changing back. Feng leapt onto Zhai Kong's fingernail. Xiang Beifei climbed up too, and then Zhai Kong ran quickly backward with his finger holding the group. "Xiang Zatsa is coming!" Zhai Kong shouted loudly while running, eager to greet everyone. Xiang Beifei rubbed his forehead. Every time he was called Zatsa, it always felt a bit awkward. But Zhai Kong's speed was indeed fast. He only ran for a while before arriving at that familiar giant city. Many giants also heard his shouting and came gathering from all directions, surrounding Xiang Beifei. Zhai Kong stopped, showing his finger to everyone. And then the giant spirits gathered excitedly. Countless big faces came closer, their eyes as large as a lake blinking in the air, watching Xiang Beifei excitedly. Being stared at by so many big eyes made Xiang Beifei feel uncomfortable, like he was some rare treasure being exhibited. "Xiang Zatsa! Xiang Zatsa! Did he defeat the Earth Zatsa? Has Xiang Zatsa not grown up yet?" Many buzzing giant voices interlaced in the air, discussing passionately, the sound waves fluttering Xiang Beifei's clothes. If it weren't for his strong current powers, these sound waves would absolutely have blown him away. "Why is everyone suddenly so enthusiastic about me?" Xiang Beifei asked puzzledly. "Because you're Taoist Qingda's grandson? Taoist Qingda's strength convinced every one of us. So everyone believes you have the ability to snatch back our giant spirit Tao's ancestral artifact," Feng explained. Quiet down. A familiar, elderly voice approached, and the giant spirits immediately quieted, opening a path. Then an old giant spirit with a scraggly white beard walked out from the crowd. He looked down at Xiang Beifei, as tiny as an ant on the fingernail, then leapt skyward. But as he jumped, his enormous body slowly shrank, soon becoming the same size as Xiang Beifei, landing on Zhai Kong's fingernail. You're here. The old giant spirit looked at Xiang Beifei kindly. Greetings, senior. Xiang Beifei slightly bowed, not daring to be proud. He now knew the might of the old giant spirit, an extremely terrifying master of the ancestral Dao realm. Besides the giant spirit Dao's heavenly Dao divine pattern, nothing could kill this old man. Even with the Yu divine steel, he must still act as a junior. But he noticed the old giant spirit appeared stronger because last time he needed to drink Ruishui River to transform, but now he could shrink easily. The old giant spirit sniffed, his gaze peculiar. I smell the scent of Gonggong. Feng immediately said, that guy is hiding inside the ancestral artifact. Xiang Beifei hesitated for a moment, considering the giant spirit race's extremely keen sense of smell. It couldn't be hidden, so he simply took out the Yu divine steel. Father Pu, long time no see. The Yu divine steel emitted a light, revealing the figure of Hai Fuyu. As soon as Hai Fuyu appeared, the surrounding giant spirits were instantly enraged. Just now, while Hai Fuyu was in the Yu divine steel, they couldn't smell him, but once he appeared, it was different. Water Zatsa! Beat him! Many giant spirits roared furiously. The old giant spirit gestured with his hand for silence, and the giant spirits quieted down. You're not very welcome here, the old giant spirit said with a smile. You should understand. Back then I was beyond my control. Hai Fuyu wasn't very calm, standing there unfazed. I know, but I still don't like it. The old giant spirit spoke as his smile persisted. I can only count as a divine pattern now. Just choose to ignore me if you don't like. Hai Fuyu spread his hands. Indifferent. Xiang Beifei knew the two sides had their differences, so he said, Father Pu Sr., I'm here for some important matters, regarding another ancestral artifact. Can you temporarily set aside your issues? It's fine, not liking is one thing, I won't do anything to him. The old giant spirit's temperament seemed good, reasonable. That's good. Does Senior know this ancestral artifact? Xiang Beifei hurriedly took out the two broken pieces of the Lydian spear. The broken Lydian spear, upon seeing the other, started getting restless again. Xiang Beifei suppressed it. The old giant spirit closely examined the two pieces of the Lydian spear. Surprised. The Dao Palace's ancestral artifact? Yes, I seized it from the Dao Palace. Xiang Beifei quickly explained everything about the common valley. The old giant spirit took over the Lydian spear, thoughtfully observing the ancestral artifact. As his palm glowed and infused light into the Lydian spear, seemingly probing. You can't control it, the old giant spirit said. I know, I need the teleportation array patterns to quickly return to Juzhou. The heavenly Dao formation patterns for teleporting are inside this ancestral artifact. Could Senior help seize control? Forcefully bypass the artifact's ownership? Xiang Beifei asked. The old giant spirit pondered for a moment, shaking his head. My current power is limited. Isn't Senior's strength far above the Lydian spear? Xiang Beifei asked. You should understand now why I can only remain here, right? The old giant spirit replied. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. To suppress this ancestral artifact, I must use complete power against it. But my strength is immense. This place's formation can't withstand my power. It would shatter, the old giant spirit explained. This world forbids the existence of the giant spirit race. This is the only place for them. If ruined, all would be wiped by the giant spirit race's heavenly Dao divine pattern. Moreover, this ancestral artifact doesn't recognize you as its master. It recognizes the Dao Palace, still retaining the Dao Palace's mark, so even if I can suppress it, I can't control it or make it serve you, the old giant spirit continued. Xiang Beifei felt a bit disappointed. Although he was mentally prepared, he was still somewhat unwilling. Xiaohei couldn't help asking, the ancestral artifact recognizes the Dao Palace as its master, but it's an ancestral artifact. How can it be so obediently controlled by the Dao Palace? Your ancestral artifacts usually help you too, don't they? The old giant spirit looked at Xiang Beifei. But they are. Xiaohei stopped mid-sentence and bit his finger, unable to refute. Indeed, Wufeng and the brick are incomplete ancestral artifacts, but at crucial moments, they always help them. No matter which ancestral artifact wants to take action against them, these artifacts would rush out to assist Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei and Xiaohei never thought deeply about this issue. They initially thought it was because of the spirit-gathering book, as the Yu Divine Steel and one of the bricks came from it. But on second thought, it wasn't so. Because Wufeng, the broken sword ancestral artifact, did not come from the spirit-gathering book. When Xiang Beifei first encountered Wufeng, it was merely a kitchen knife used by his grandfather for cooking. His amnesiac grandfather didn't even know what Wufeng's purpose was and just used the kitchen knife to cook meals for Xiang Beifei for more than a decade. Yet, even so, whenever there was danger, Wufeng would help Xiang Beifei. Can ancestral artifacts also recognize a master? Xiang Beifei inquired. It's not exactly recognizing a master. Why don't you ask him why he follows you? The old giant spirit gestured towards Hai Fuyu. Xiang Beifei looked at Hai Fuyu inquisitively. In a sense, Hai Fuyu could also be considered a heavenly Dao divine pattern, a half-ancestral artifact. Hai Fuyu spread his hands and said, "We help each other, but you are also attached to the Yu Divine Steel in the form of a divine pattern," the old giant spirit noted. Reluctantly, Hai Fuyu said, "I can't defeat the Yu Divine Steel, so I honestly submit to it. That's how most ancestral artifacts are." The old giant spirit smiled calmly and said, "Ancestral artifacts have their own consciousness. They will autonomously seek out someone they can rely on. Strictly speaking, ancestral artifacts don't truly recognize a master. You've merely gained their approval, which is why they assist you." He scrutinized the Yu Divine Steel and Wufeng extracted by Xiang Beifei and continued, "Wufeng and the Yu Divine Steel clearly approve of you, including your other ancestral artifacts. But the Litian Spear approves of someone on the side of the Dao Palace, and I suppose it's Hutu herself. Although you've taken the Litian Spear, it's evident that you haven't conquered it. It acknowledges Hutu because she conquered it." Xiaohei suddenly understood and said, "So, if we want to control the Litian Spear, we must also have the ability to conquer it?" It's not exactly conquering. The approval of an ancestral artifact is a complex process. It's not simply because you are powerful that it recognizes you. If that were the case, I should own many ancestral artifacts. But in reality, I'm just a pauper with nothing but seeking wood," the old giant spirit joked. "That's true." Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. The old giant spirit was one of the strongest experts standing at the top of the world, even stronger than many ancestral artifacts. "So, how exactly does one gain approval?" Xiaohei asked. "That depends. It might be drawn to a particular trait in you that resonates with it. Different ancestral artifacts value different traits. Some value kindness, some value resilience, others may value your malevolence, ruthlessness, or cunning. Essentially, one trait of yours must strike a chord with it. In short, it's a match made in heaven," Era eagerly interjected. "More or less?" The old giant spirit stroked his beard and continued, "Of course, there are other ways. If you can't gain its approval, you could have a more powerful ancestral artifact devour it. That way, you'd also gain the power of this ancestral artifact, which is the most common approach, and everyone opts for this." He scrutinized Xiang Beifei and said, "But a big fish eats a small fish, and a small fish can't eat a big fish. It seems you don't have an ancestral artifact that can devour it. The complete Wufeng and 5 pieces of stone might be stronger than the Litian Spear, but the incomplete ones can't manage, so it's impossible to devour it." Xiang Beifei indeed didn't possess a decent ancestral artifact. For now, only the Yu Divine Steel was complete. But the Yu Divine Steel usually remains aloof from worldly affairs. It intimidates the giant spirit race and Hai Fuyu because it inherently possesses divine patterns that restrain these two races. Beyond that, its overall power isn't stronger than the Litian spear. And what about Seeking Wood? We went to Common Valley this time and brought back the roots of Seeking Wood, Xiang Beifei mentioned. The old giant spirit shook his head. The overall power of Seeking Wood is not as strong as the Litian spear. Xiang Beifei pondered for a moment and asked, if we strip away the divine patterns from it, devouring them one by one to continuously weaken its power, would that work? The old giant spirit furrowed his brow and murmured thoughtfully. That might be possible, but it's very difficult to separate divine patterns that have been devoured by an ancestral artifact. I've tried it before. The divine patterns of mustard seed and palm were stripped from the Litian spear during a deal we struck, Xiang Beifei said. Xiaohe regrettably said, at that time, we should have offered a higher price. In Xin City, without much consideration, they had the Litian spear relinquish one divine pattern. They should have exchanged more divine patterns from it, and it would have been great to get their hands on the teleportation divine pattern. The old giant spirit seemed somewhat surprised. Nonetheless, he still said, I think it's better if you enhance your cultivation first. Once you have sufficient cultivation, things will be easier to manage. At least if your strength surpasses that of the ancestral artifact, even if it doesn't recognize you, you can still suppress it. Xiang Beifei could only temporarily set aside these thoughts. After a while, he asked, by the way, Father Pu, another thing, about the world's boundary, what's that about? Why did you suddenly ask this? Xiaohe said, because Feifei's father went to the world's end, and it seems the Dao Palace is also planning to do something there. Seeking Wood has an ability to grow in any corner, including the world's end, right? Xiang Beifei asked. Old Giant Spirit frowned deeply. Where are Seeking Wood's roots? Old Giant Spirit asked. Right here, Feng said, as he tapped his chest with a thud and then spat out a ball of light. Ugh, you actually ate it and spat it out. How disgusting. Era beside them said disdainfully. This is our way of preserving things. Old Giant Spirit was used to it and took the ball of light while giving Xiang Beifei a meaningful look. The place at the world's end. Wait until you have the strength to talk about it. Xiang Beifei's lips moved slightly, but he didn't ask further. He also understood that before he had strength, even if he knew the situation at the world's end, he couldn't intervene. In that case, I'll take my leave. I must quickly improve my cultivation level and race against time. Xiang Beifei cupped his hands and said. He planned to return to the Edge Corner airspace to train. Wait, you just said you got the 4th brick, right? Old Giant Spirit asked. Yes, someone left the 4th brick for me. It was my father. Can you lend it to me for a look? Here. Xiang Beifei still trusted Old Giant Spirit, so he took out 4 bricks and handed them over. At this time, the 4 bricks looked dusty and seemed to have no abilities. The bricks only emitted great power when encountering adversarial ancestral weapons. Without other ancestral weapons, they were just solid bricks. Old Giant Spirit weighed the 4 bricks and gently tapped them. Lines of golden formation patterns appeared on the bricks, which used to restrict many things. However, it was clear these golden patterns had no effect on Old Giant Spirit, as they never extended to his fingers. He seemed to perceive something, continuously tapping and looking at those divine patterns, and said, I knew it should possess the ability to halt the world. Yes, it can temporarily halt the world. Back then, the brick relied on this ability to deal with the heavenly spear. Xiang Beifei explained the details again. You should know, if you can slow down the world's forward speed and you're unaffected, you'll have more time, right? Old Giant Spirit asked. Do you mean, I can train in a halted world? Yes. Old Giant Spirit nodded slightly. But Xiang Beifei hesitated. I can't activate the brick to that state unless it encounters adversarial ancestral weapons, where it would take effect. Back in Common Valley, he had thought about this question, halting the time of a region where others can't move and he could, thus gaining more training time. But back then, Xiang Tianqing advised him against doing it because only 5 bricks had the ability to halt the world, while 4 bricks could only create a region. outside the region, time remained normal. If he trained in Common Valley, the people of Dao Palace would break the region eventually. And if not in Common Valley, without an adversarial ancestral weapon to stimulate the brick, it wouldn't randomly create that domain, and Xiang Beifei didn't have enough cultivation to control it. Neither Seeking Wood nor Wufeng could make it feel hostile. I might have a way to trigger it, Old Giant Spirit said. Xiang Beifei was surprised. I thought ancestral weapons could only be wielded by those they recognized. Can you wield the brick's ability? Old Giant Spirit pointed at the heavenly spear and said, using it as an adversarial ancestral weapon should work. Xiaohe was puzzled. But the heavenly spear is lacking in energy now. The brick doesn't react to it. Do we need to restore the heavenly spear? Just control the extent of the heavenly spear's damage. I must say, Xiang Tianxing is quite knowledgeable. He knew how to completely weaken an ancestral weapon, breaking it into two parts of equal strength like this, making both sides unable to take the initiative, which suppressed the consciousness. For a typically incomplete ancestral weapon, one side usually takes dominance. Old Giant Spirit weighed the two parts of the heavenly spear, appreciating Xiang Tianxing's skills. Xiang Tianxing accurately controlled the extent of the heavenly spear's damage, rendering it unresponsive. Breaking an ancestral weapon into two equal parts means it becomes fragmented, lacking consciousness, so the Dao Palace can't locate the heavenly spear. Otherwise, with the Dao Palace's methods, even if you took the heavenly spear, as long as it had consciousness, the Dao Palace could still locate it. Old Giant Spirit said. What do you plan to do? Xiang Beifei asked. Old Giant Spirit took out one broken spear shaft, tapped it, and then forcefully wrenched it. Crack! The broken heavenly spear was snapped again. Now the complete heavenly spear was in three parts. Each of the three pieces was of different lengths, the shortest segment being only 1/10 of the entire spear. He attached this small section back to the upper half of the heavenly spear. The upper part of the heavenly spear matched perfectly with this part, and as soon as they touched, a gray light emanated, enveloping it, and in a moment, it was repaired, perfectly connecting together. Meanwhile, the power of the brick was rapidly rising because it was no longer two halves, but had recovered part of its consciousness. At this moment, the four bricks also emitted intense hostility, with terrifying ripples resounding. Swoosh! The surroundings seemed to come to a standstill. 100 miles around, the wind halted, the giant spirits enthusiastically observing also stopped, and the mist floating in the sky stood still. The power of the brick had reappeared. That should do it. Old Giant Spirit smiled slightly. Who knew you could operate this way? Xiang Beifei and Xiaohe exchanged a glance, both very surprised. This method was unexpected for them, and they didn't know much about ancestral weapons and hadn't considered using this approach to activate the brick's power. However, he then asked, didn't you say the Dao Palace could find the consciousness of the heavenly spear? Wouldn't this let the Dao Palace locate it? In the Edge Corner airspace, indeed, the Dao Palace could find it. But the Bone Mountain Desert Caves formation is enclosed. Though it traps us like a cage, it is currently the safest place. So you should train well here, and I will keep watch for you, Old Giant Spirit said. Thank you, Senior. Xiang Beifei said sincerely, expressing his gratitude. No need. It's just for the sake of an old friend. Old Giant Spirit smiled. If possible, I will help you in the future to retrieve the ancestral weapon that seals the Giant Spirit Dao, Xiang Beifei said. Hopefully. Old Giant Spirit chuckled lightly. Xiang Beifei continued training in the time-stop domain created by the brick. The time-stopping area under the suppression of Old Giant Spirit was approximately a radius of 10 miles. Because if the area expanded, the power of the ancestral weapon would also increase, requiring more power to protect and potentially bringing a greater impact to the formation of the Bone Mountain Desert Cave, which was unsafe, so they tried to shrink the halted range. Of course, time wasn't completely halted because there were only 4 bricks. They couldn't stop the entire world, only slow down the flow of time. The external flow of time remained normal. Upon calculating, about a third was reduced. If Xiang Beifei trained here for a year, about 3 months would pass outside. Old Giant Spirit also let some of his tribe members shrink their bodies and enter this range to train, accelerating the growth of his tribe members. Giants had large bodies and loved to be noisy, but after being disciplined and hammered by old giant spirit, they calmed down, not affecting Xiang Beifei. In fact, Xiang Beifei wasn't too bothered by the giant's noise, as he could shield himself from such perceptions. He was now training with singular focus. He had to advance to the ancestral Dao realm before the Dao Palace took action against the human race in Juzhou. In the pitch-black night sky, a blood-red moon hung, missing a corner, as if something had bitten off a piece. In the distance, a few birds flitted across the moon's shadow, letting out a few mournful cries. Below, the black forest seemed to be disturbed by desolate beasts, roaring furiously and shaking the leaves with a rustle. Beyond the domain, the wilderness was shrouded in a thick fog, like a terrifying abyss, lingering over everyone's minds. "Captain, Xiao Lu. Xiao Lu has fallen asleep. Wake him up. Something's not right here, we need to head back. He can't be woken up. He seems to be having a nightmare. Struggling constantly. His face shows great fear. Damn it. Quickly, wake him. Who has a spirit revival pill? Get him to take it. Captain, he can't be woken up. Xiao Lu. Xiao Lu." His heart exploded. In the dark night, a pale girl shouted with a sobbing voice. A tall, sturdy, middle-aged man quickly walked over, looking at the motionless comrade on the ground, his eyes filled with shock. At this moment, a shocking bloody hole appeared on Xiao Lu's body, through which you could clearly see the shattered heart. This was a pioneering team, the tall and sturdy middle-aged man named Zhu Liang, whose cultivation was in the early stage of god refining. They came to the Marquis Domain this time to collect lightning energy. The Marquis Domain was relatively safe for them. They were still on the side of the Marquis Domain close to Juzhou. The strongest desolate beast only had late meridian opening cultivation, while Zhu Liang was at the early stage of god refining. But unexpectedly, during the night while resting, the one responsible for standing guard, Xiao Lu, suddenly fell asleep. And once asleep, he never woke up. Captain was, "I don't know, we must leave. Something's not right here, very not right. It seems there is a desolate beast not belonging to the Marquis Domain lurking around." Zhu Liang alertly checked the surroundings. He was an experienced pioneer, an SR-ranked awakener, performing various tasks in the Marquis Domain for years. He knew very well what desolate beasts existed in the Marquis Domain, but from the time Xiao Lu fell asleep to his death, it was merely a quarter of an hour, yet he didn't notice any desolate beasts approaching. The team had a total of 5 people. Xiao Lu was an S-ranked awakener, in the mid-stage of meridian opening, responsible for covering retreat. Now, without him, the burden of retreat fell on the others. "Hui Jun, you take over Xiao Lu's task," Zhu Liang shouted. But the girl called Hui Jun wobbled, her eyes tired, and said, Captain, I'm so sleepy. I must sleep a bit." "You can't sleep now," Zhu Liang shouted loudly. But Hui Jun had already fallen down, her eyelids too heavy, just like they were weighed down with lead, dragging downwards. Even attempting to open them was hard. She struggled for a moment and finally closed her eyes, softly beginning to snore. "Captain, I'm really sleepy too." The other young man beside her also yawned with a weary face and then lay down. In just a moment, except for Zhu Liang, the whole team lay down. "You can't sleep. Get up." Zhu Liang shouted out. He even used spiritual power to strengthen his throat, letting out a soul-shaking roar, trying to awaken everyone in his team, but it was completely ineffective. 3 people were already fast asleep. None could resist the overwhelming drowsiness from their bodies. Even though there was already an example of Xiao Lu who fell into eternal slumber, it couldn't prevent them from falling asleep at all. Zhu Liang immediately tried to pull his team members, but a mysterious and irresistible wave of drowsiness suddenly surged within himself, making his brain instantly fatigued, as if he hadn't slept for days. That drowsiness made him long to lie down. And at this moment, the 2 members who had just fallen asleep seemed to have nightmares. Their bodies constantly curled up, letting out a scream, blood streaming from their noses and mouths. This feeling, could it be? But how is it possible? How can such a desolate beast be here? Isn't it only rumored to exist in the forbidden domain? Zhu Liang suddenly thought of a bizarre, desolate beast. But now he didn't even have the strength left to resist and fell asleep. From being awake to asleep took less than 10 seconds. But when he regained consciousness, he found himself in a vast field. Soon, a nimble red desolate beast appeared in Zhu Liang's consciousness. This red beast seemed very weak, showing no trace of aggressiveness, looking very cute, just like an harmless little rabbit. It let out a pleasant and soft sound, happily running towards Zhu Liang. Faced with this adorable red rabbit, Zhu Liang couldn't even muster any vigilance. He surprisingly felt an urge to protect this red rabbit. Woo! The rabbit leapt towards Zhu Liang, who didn't resist. But what he didn't see was that under the red rabbit's glossy fur, sharp spikes lit up. Just as Zhu Liang was about to hold the red rabbit, a strong killing intent flashed in the rabbit's eyes, and those spikes were aimed at Zhu Liang's heart. No! Zhu Liang struggled desperately, but couldn't stop it at all. The spikes already pierced through his skin. He could clearly perceive the sensation of his blood vessels being torn open, but just then, a resonant voice echoed in his ear. When taking dreams as fleeting life's affairs, yet fleeting life is but a dream. This voice was filled with strange magnetism, like resonating bells, ringing within Zhu Liang's consciousness. The sharp claws that had pierced Zhu Liang's skin suddenly just phased through his body, as if his body had suddenly turned ethereal. The red rabbit was slightly stunned, clearly not expecting this to happen, and it turned its head angrily, its gaze wandering before it noticed a young man. Zhu Liang had just escaped from the gates of hell, and he also saw this young man, immediately shouting, "Zimu!" The young man in front was none other than Li Zimu. The current Li Zimu had shed the innocence of his student days, appearing more composed and his aura deep. He frowned slightly, looking at the red rabbit. The red rabbit lowered its head, its eyes suddenly turning white, and then its fur bristled with countless sharp spikes, which thrust backward fiercely, intending to continue piercing Zhu Liang. "Come over." With a wave of Li Zimu's hand, Zhu Liang felt his vision blur, and he had already been pulled behind Li Zimu. Zhu Liang clapped his heavy head, trying hard to wake himself up, and said, "What is this?" Li Zimu frowned and said, "It should be a Meng Huai, a very powerful and strange desolate beast." "So it's indeed a Meng Huai." Zhu Liang's expression turned grave. He had never encountered such a desolate beast before, but he had heard of it in the Zhouzhou Desolate Beast database. It is a beast that lives in the boundary zones or even tranquil domain, with power at least in the orifice transforming stage. You can't see this desolate beast, and it won't bother you when you're awake. But if you're careless in the outer wilderness zones, it might drag you into sleep. In the dream, no matter how violent and powerful your physical attacks are, they're useless. If you're killed in the dream, you'll never wake up. But this is the Marquis domain. How can there be such a desolate beast? Zhu Liang said in a deep voice. That's the problem. Li Zimu stared at the red rabbit and said, "Recently, the outer wilderness zones have become different." Chirp! The red rabbit in the distance looked even angrier upon seeing Li Zimu appear, and it roared, letting out a piercing screech that sounded like nails scratching on a chalkboard, making people's eardrums uncomfortable. Swish! 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 The entire grassland erupted with various spikes. These dense spikes instantly tore through the void, stabbing toward them. However, with just a light wave of Li Zimu's hand, all the spikes in front of him instantly turned into a whirl of snowflakes. In terms of reality and spiritual power, these are not enough. Li Zimu took a step forward and slashed with his hand, immediately conjuring a terrifying long blade in the air, cleaving the Meng Huai in front of him into two halves. Whish! The dream shattered, and Zhu Liang and the others suddenly opened their eyes on the ground, scrambling to their feet, bewildered to have survived the dream. Were we having a nightmare? Everyone recalled the scenario just now, feeling very uneasy. The Meng Huai was different in everyone's dream, but they all attacked, and without Li Zimu's timely arrival, the consequences would have been unimaginable. It's a pity about Xiao Lu. Zhu Liang looked at Xiao Lu, still lying on the ground. Everyone survived, but Xiao Lu was killed in the dream and was beyond saving. But Li Zimu did not relax just because he defeated the Meng Huai. He turned his gaze toward the distant darkness, where the howling sounds grew louder and more powerful auras were vaguely approaching. Boom! 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 Under the blood moon, a gigantic desolate beast, over 100 meters tall, suddenly emerged from the ground, with long horns carrying trees, roaring loudly. The terrifying waves swept out and severed trees within a 10-mile radius at the waist. It was not the only desolate beast to appear. Thin black shadows emerged in the sky, swiftly darting like some swift desolate beasts, shrieking sharply, seemingly having discovered the few people here, and rushed towards them. Judging by the aura emitted by these desolate beasts, they're all at least in the orifice transforming stage. Now's not the time for sorrow, leave quickly, Li Zimu shouted loudly. He waved his hands again, and countless winds arose around them. These winds spiraled, lifting everyone and swiftly retreating. I want to ride the wind away. Li Zimu, enlightened by the poetic realm, could create various powerful abilities. His capabilities were comprehensive. Whether for attack or retreat, it was just a matter of a single verse. But before they flew far with the wind, a giant palm, dozens of meters high, suddenly appeared abruptly from the sky, striking down towards them with incredible momentum, at least the late orifice transforming stage. Watch out! Li Zimu shouted softly, thrusting his hands forward. Instantly, walls materialized in the air. These walls were incredibly sturdy, standing tens of meters high, covering the front. Boom! A giant palm struck the wall, unleashing a thunderous roar. Li Zimu's walls only trembled momentarily but remained unscathed. But soon, more terrifying giant beasts surrounded from all directions. To the horror of Zhu Liang and the others, these beasts possessed power equivalent to the orifice transforming phase. Boom! Boom! More and more attacks landed on the walls created by Li Zimu. The walls he conjured were suddenly shattered, with countless giant palms smashing down from all sides. Li Zimu had to both protect the people behind him and contend with these giant beasts, clearly unable to focus elsewhere. Especially with the diverse abilities of the desolate beasts here. As he engaged with these massive desolate beasts, the air was filled with the sound of many objects piercing through, like bullets shooting through. Quickly, they realized these were not bullets but small bees, each possessing the strength of the orifice transforming phase. These black bees, taking advantage of the nighttime cover, circumvented Li Zimu and charged at Zhu Liang. With the cultivation of Zhu Liang and the others, they were utterly unable to resist. Li Zimu could not even care about these black desolate bees. At this moment, a dazzling light burst from the center. It was so bright, like a miniature sun suddenly blossoming, illuminating the night like daylight. The instant Zhu Liang and the others saw the light, they were completely blinded, losing their vision. But it was not just Zhu Liang who lost their sight. Even those attacking bees were blinded. These bees lost their targets, crashing into one another like headless flies, and then numerous light beams shot out from the white light, annihilating all those desolate beasts. Hey, are you okay? As the light faded, a proud young man emerged from it. The young man crossed his arms in front of him, lifted his chin, appearing extremely aloof, especially those eyes, shining brightly even in the dark night. None other than Long Guoqing. I thought you were on a mission in Tranquil Domain's 8th district. Li Zimu waved his hand. A sword light descended from the sky, shattering those giant beasts. That's not important now. Commander Luo had me come to support you. He said something seems wrong in the outer desolate territory, ordering all pioneers in the desolate territory to retreat. Long Guoqing said coldly, I specifically came out to find the missing pioneer team. It's not safe here. The Marquis domain is already in chaos. Li Zimu turned to Zhu Liang and the others, frowning. Your radiance abound blinded them. That's called dazzling brilliance. Long Guoqing showed a trace of annoyance on his face. When did the name change? Li Zimu inquired. Change your grandpa. Long Guoqing couldn't help but curse. but his mind involuntarily recalled that guy from earlier. The N-level opponent he swore to conquer. The N-level roommate he always wanted to outstare. Also annoyingly enjoyed calling his dazzling brilliance as radiance abound. Still leaving him feeling bitter. Long Guoqing snorted lightly. His eyes lit up with a blue light, healing Zhu Liang and the other's blindness. Then casually asked, "Hey, Li Zimu, do you think that guy is still alive? It's been years without any news of Xiang Beifei. Mysteriously vanished without a trace. You miss him that much?" Li Zimu's lips curled into a smile. "Scram!" Long Guoqing snapped coldly. Li Zimu gathered everyone together, constantly alert for any desolate beasts suddenly emerging around them, saying, "I believe he's still alive. Better alive. I haven't beaten him in a staring contest yet. Don't die too quickly." Long Guoqing said fiercely. Li Zimu looked at Long Guoqing with an odd gaze, then said, "No more about this. We must quickly return to report to Elder Luo about these desolate beasts. The outer desolate territory has already seen many desolate beasts I don't recognize. I feel a change is coming." The two said no more, immediately leading everyone, swiftly disappearing into the night, rushing toward Jiuzhou. Amidst the vast wilderness, desolate beasts were roaring. Today, their reactions were exceptionally strange, appearing very irritable as they left their dwellings, scurrying everywhere, attacking each other. On a dense and towering mountain peak, a fine dust of sand spread along the roots of the trees on the mountainside, climbing all the way to the summit, and then gradually coalescing into two people. It was a man and a woman, both wearing the outfits of explorers, their clothes marked with streaks of blood, some places torn. The man's left thigh bone was broken, still connected by skin, flipping outward at a bizarre vertical angle. But the sand covered his foot, slowly maneuvering the broken foot back to its proper position, restoring normalcy. He was evidently different from those parasitic ghost mustache of remnant visage, which could only maintain the appearance of humans until their last breath, but he could heal his injuries. The man moved his neck and stretched his arms, seemingly adjusting to this body, then glanced down at the nameplate on his chest, and smiled. "Su Qiuan. I like this name. Every explorer's clothing bears a nameplate, so if one loses their life in the Great Desolate Realm, at least their name can confirm who they are." He then looked up at the nameplate in front of the woman and said, "Your name is, let me see, Hu Judy? Why not just call you Butterfly? Is that my decision to make?" The woman named Hu Judy replied coldly. Her figure was agile. She should have been a quick combat-type explorer when she was alive, only now her head was somewhat askew, as if the cervical spine of her neck had been broken. "I still prefer the name Butterfly. Butterflies are interesting creatures," Su Qiuan said in self-satisfaction. Then they both looked into the distance. From here, they could clearly see the grand and imposing wall shining with a bronzed glow, majestic, guarded by various powerful forces, imbuing a sense of unyielding hardness. The wall extended for untold miles, disappearing into the vast expanse of the earth. "So this is the Jiuzhou continent where the human race resides?" Su Qiuan marveled. "I didn't expect them to migrate such a long way from the edge-corner airspace just to survive. The Great Desolate Realm is so vast that, honestly, without Yiming's guidance, it might have taken us 10 years to get here." Hu Judy twisted her neck, a crack sound as she reconnected her broken neck. "Even with guidance, it took so long. It's so remote in the Great Desolate Realm that it took a whole year even at the speed of the heavenly connection level," Su Qiuan said. Hu Judy chuckled softly, saying, "It doesn't matter. We came here this time to eliminate these remnants of the human race. There's no rush for that. We must find Wu Yiming first. Speaking of which, what's the name of Wu Yiming here in Jiuzhou? The mark he left instructed us to wait for him here, right?" Su Qiuan glanced around, looking in all directions. Next, he seemed to discover something, revealing a delighted smile. "Hiding here, in a dark corner not far away, a shadow stood silently there, appearing to be part of the shadow. Even upon careful inspection, one might not notice this shadow." "You're a bit slow," the shadow said coldly. Su Qiuan shrugged and said, "Can't help it. It's too far away to arrive on time, and we couldn't contact you from the other side of Common Valley. Luo Changbai blocked the only path. Hu Judy looked at the shadow and asked, "How did you know we would come here today? Who else but you could drive a beast like Meng Huai here?" The shadow replied coldly, "Is that what Jojo calls this kind of desolate beast? Meng Huai, not bad. I like the name. It has more artistic conception than Hu Judy." Su Qiyuan praised. Hu Judy gave Su Qiyuan a cold glance, but he didn't mind at all, appearing to be in a good mood. "Just the two of you?" the shadow asked. "The others are still driving the beast tied back there. To completely wipe out the human race this time, we must rely on the desolate beasts for a siege, correct? They're working with the demon tentacle race to herd all sorts of interesting desolate beasts here, planning a grand siege to trap the human race in the great desolate realm with nowhere to escape," Su Qiyuan said delightedly. "Aren't you going to help?" Hu Judy said coldly, "We have more important tasks." "What is it?" "The shard of the human Tao ancestral tool," the shadow said solemnly. "The ancestral tool that seals the human Tao? Did you find it?" Su Qiyuan nodded and said, "Yes. It took an enormous effort to find. It was hidden so deeply. We originally thought it was the Great Cauldron which connects all Tao embryos in Zhuzhou. But later we realized the heavenly Tao divine pattern of human Tao is not within the Great Cauldron. Anyway, we found it, but unfortunately, it's missing a shard. With a shard of the human Tao ancestral tool missing, how are you sure it's in Zhuzhou? It might also be in the Edge Corner airspace." "No, it must be in Zhuzhou," Hu Judy said with certainty. "Why?" "Because the Earth God took the ancestral tool that seals the human Tao to the side of the Great Cauldron's vortex, using some method I don't know to make it sense where its shard is, and it pointed to the Great Cauldron vortex, which is Zhuzhou." Su Qiyuan looked like a careless person, and he spoke very casually. The shadow did not speak immediately. He seemed to be lost in thought. Su Qiyuan yawned and said nonchalantly, "In any case, the two of us are currently responsible for finding the human Tao artifact fragments. We didn't catch the tide with them. To be honest, I prefer playing with desolate beasts. They're much more lovable than humans." He paused and continued, "Lord Earth God has asked us to be prepared for two outcomes. If we find the artifact fragments and restore the artifact, we can use it to wipe the human race from this world completely. If we can't find them, at least we need to eliminate the remnants of Zhuzhou." "What features do the fragments have?" asked the shadow. Su Qiyuan shook his head. "I don't know. Once the artifact fragments leave the main body, they become inconspicuous things. Sometimes they're right under your nose, and you might not even know. Only the artifact can sense its fragments. Of course, with the lesson learned from the Heavenly Spear, we didn't bring that human Tao artifact here, but we do have means to sense it." "What happened to the Heavenly Spear?" the shadow asked. Su Qiyuan waved his hand and said, "It's a long story. I'll tell you in detail later. That's our mission, and we're also here to help you kill that— what's their name again?" "Hu Judy." "Luo Yunxian," Hu Judy said coldly. "Right, it's Luo Yunxian." Su Qiyuan smacked his palm and said, "Luo Changbai says he's the #1 expert in Zhuzhou. Seems like no average person. You might not be able to handle him, and we can help you take him down together." "You won't be able to kill him," the shadow said coldly. Hu Judy said disdainfully, "Just a human from the heavenly connection realm. I can crush him with one hand. Maybe in the Edge Corner airspace you could, but in your current state, in the great desolate realm, you'll only meet your end," the shadow said indifferently. "Just because you can't doesn't mean we can't." Hu Judy's tone remained icy. "Are you perhaps thinking of sacrificing yourself? I didn't know you had such selfless qualities." The shadow looked coldly at Hu Judy. The woman snorted softly. According to intelligence, Luo Yunxian is the top expert in Zhuzhou, almost invincible in the great desolate realm. But killing Luo Yunxian isn't too difficult. With powers from the immortal realm, it's enough to take him down. Of course, using immortal realm powers is also very dangerous, as the heavenly Tao forces in the great desolate realm would annihilate them. but they have revival sigils which will bring them back if killed. However, being killed by the heavenly Tao is not a pleasant experience because the cost is too great. No one wants to lie dormant for hundreds, or even thousands of years. Being annihilated by the heavenly Tao means destroying one's foundations instantly, having to start cultivating from scratch. No one wants to go through such a process, especially those who had once stood at the pinnacle of the world as ancestral Tao realm masters. They are even more unwilling to fall from grace and act according to others' whims. We don't necessarily need to use immortal realm powers. We can besiege him, can't we? Su Qiyuan said. Zhuozhou doesn't just have him as a heavenly connection realm expert. There are also many formidable people. I have tallied them. There are 519 heavenly connection realm experts in all of Zhuozhou. Do you think if we attack him, the others will just stand aside? The shadow said. That's exactly our goal. When the beast tide comes, everyone will be too busy dealing with it, and no one will be able to protect anyone else. We can lure Luo Yunxian out and join forces to kill him in the great desolate realm, leaving Zhuozhou leaderless, Su Qiyuan said with a smile. Hu Judy looked coldly at the shadow and said, I heard you hold a significant position in Zhuozhou, and many people respect you. I suppose you have a good relationship with Luo Yunxian, right? Can't you find an excuse now to lure him out, so we can deal with him here? The shadow seemed somewhat annoyed and said, You've oversimplified things. You stirred up all the desolate beasts without consulting me, completely disrupting my plans. Do you know what the position of Zhuozhou's commander means? What does it mean? During a beast tide outbreak, the commander can never leave Zhuozhou because as the commander, he must direct everyone in battle. Such a figurehead, do you think, during a beast tide riot, could just casually venture alone into the desolate realm? The shadow said menacingly. Su Qiyuan and Hu Judy exchanged a glance and slightly frowned. We really didn't know. Su Qiyuan chuckled sheepishly. Foolish. The shadow scolded coldly. We came to help you. Hu Judy seemed displeased with the shadow's tone. To help me, follow my orders. I know the Zhuozhou human race best. Don't tell me Lord Earth God didn't inform you of this. The shadow raised his voice. Hu Judy pressed her lips tightly, but didn't argue back. Even the carefree Su Qiyuan stopped grinning. Before coming here, they had indeed been warned to act according to Wu Yiming's orders. It's our fault. Hu Judy uncharacteristically lowered her aloof head. Humph. Regarding where the human Tao fragments are in Zhuozhou, I don't know. But I will give you some clues. Be mindful of your identities, Hu Judy and Su Qiyuan. Make sure to disguise well. Yes, the two responded. After a moment, Su Qiyuan curiously asked again, By the way, what name are you disguised under in Zhuozhou? Is your status high? The shadow snorted coldly, unwilling to respond, and disappeared directly into the night sky. Su Qiyuan straightened his attire and then looked at Zhuozhou with a pleasant smile, rubbing his hands. The hunt for humans is about to begin again. It really excites me. On the outskirts of the Zhuozhou continent stands a sturdy wall, stretching thousands of miles, relying on various powerful systems to control it. This wall is used to fend off attacks from desolate beasts, guarding the borders. At this moment, on the walls of Zhuozhou City, stood a thin old figure, standing with his hands behind his back, quietly looking at the vast, desolate realm. Amidst the night, turbulent undercurrents surged, with desolate beast roars echoing unceasingly. Waves of mist drifted by, carrying an aura of primal bloodlust. Li Zimu and Long Guoqing stood behind him, their expressions filled with respect. Even the proud Long Guoqing would become very obedient in front of this old man. This was Zhuozhou's only true god, everyone's reliance. Standing there, he was like a towering mountain, giving people a feeling of stability and security. Everyone believed that, with Luo Yunxian here, Zhuozhou would not be in trouble. You said Meng Huai appeared in the Marquis domain? Elder Luo spoke. Yes, when I arrived, 2 entire pioneer squads were in trouble, and Zhu Liang's team also lost one. Such a powerful desolate beast shouldn't come here. Not many can resist a beast like Meng Huai, Li Zimu said with a heavy brow. Meng Huai belongs to a powerful desolate beast type that attacks with spiritual power. It is formless and intangible but likes to drag people into dreams where any physical attacks are ignored. Only spiritual power can affect it. But among the pioneers, very few can wield spiritual power, which has caused many pioneers to suffer. Li Zimu learned to use spiritual power while training in the desolate realm under the guidance of Xiang Beifei, fortunately enabling him to use poetry realm to kill such desolate beasts. I understand. Go and search again. Bring back the missing pioneers, and ensure your safety, said Elder Luo. Understood. Li Zimu and Long Guoqing turned and left, departing the wall and leaping into the boundless desolate realm. Elder Luo tapped the wall lightly with his fingers, a subtle fluctuation visible in his clear eyes. Meng Huai was the first high-level, rare desolate beast introduced to Xiang Beifei when Elder Luo was teaching him spiritual power. 8 years have passed. Xiang Beifei went deep into the desolate realm and never returned, with no news of him. For these 8 years, he's been constantly blaming himself, wondering how he could be so foolish to let that child leave Jojo alone. You must live. Elder Luo sighed. The aura of the exotic wilderness beyond the domain grows increasingly volatile, shrouding the entire wilderness in an eerie atmosphere. At this moment, countless shadows are continuously darting in from the outer wilderness, entering Jojo's city walls. These are the explorers who received the message that they must evacuate the wilderness and return to Jojo to guard the defensive line. Numerous experts are combing through the wilderness, summoning people who are left behind. The defensive line of Jojo is now completely sealed, allowing no one to leave. With the beast-tide turmoil, the risk of leaving is too great. Elder Luo stands on the city wall, scouting the situation and deploying personnel. At this moment, a person rushes over hurriedly. Guo, how's the situation? Elder Luo inquired. Not optimistic. I just went to Sector 36 of the Marquis Domain, on the edge of the Tranquil Domain, where the desolate beasts have gone chaotic. A large herd is heading this way, and the desolate beasts are quite peculiar, Professor Guo said, covered in dust. How peculiar? Powerful desolate beasts. Extremely powerful desolate beasts. I even saw many that are sparsely documented in the classics, with strengths at least at the orifice transforming stage. Their arrival forces those relatively weaker desolate beasts from Tranquil Domain to move towards Jojo. We must prepare. The first wave of the beast tide is highly likely coming soon. Professor Guo wiped his sweat and explained the situation in detail. Meanwhile, another figure also approached from the distant wilderness, an authoritative old man, an SSR-level awakener, Sun Hushuan, leading another batch of visibly frightened explorers. Sun, how's the situation on your side? Elder Luo queried. Very bad. I just returned from the outer wilderness. Our pioneering team suffered huge losses this time, Sun Hushuan said with a heavy demeanor. As the head of the pioneering department, he oversees all the explorers in Jojo. Originally, these explorers were out in the wilderness performing various missions, but this sudden desolate beast upheaval came without warning, and by the time everyone reacted, many explorers were already lost. Upon hearing the news, he immediately rushed to the wilderness to assist in the rescue. The beast tide is approaching. The recon team reported that the beast tide is 500 kilometers from Jojo. At the speed it's advancing, it will arrive within an hour. I've instructed them to assist those active in the cultivated domain and Marquis Domain to return to Jojo, Sun Hushuan reported. Yi Changfeng also leaped up from below the city wall, quickly saying, I've brought back all the martial arts students participating in practical training. Apart from injuries, there are no life-threatening situations, but many hunters are still outside. Usually, not only explorers perform missions in the wilderness, but also martial arts students go for practice. Some private companies send hunters to hunt desolate beasts on their own. The wilderness hosts all kinds of people. But in a crisis, regardless of who they are, the Alliance must bring them back to Jojo. Have the defense zones along each borderline be on full alert, and instruct the major colleges to send martial arts students to maintain order in civilian areas, entering a state of alert to prevent desolate beasts from intruding into civilian areas, Elder Luo ordered. His command swiftly disseminated, prompting many to mobilize upon learning of the impending beast tide. Every large-scale beast tide is formidable, especially this time. It's even more peculiar. Every university martial arts college headmaster and professor began assigning tasks to students. In this scenario, martial arts students understand their mission. Many are not yet capable of confronting desolate beasts, but as students, they must shoulder the responsibility of maintaining order in civilian living areas. Besides performing logistical tasks, these students must prepare a secondary defense. If some areas can't be defended and desolate beasts break through, they must assist civilians without combat abilities to retreat and establish a second line of defense. Now, under Elder Luo's management, the Jojo alliance has improved significantly, no longer the deceitful alliance it once was. Everyone follows Elder Luo's lead with high preparation efficiency. A decade ago, when beast tides attacked, high-level awakeners were lofty, responsible only for verbal commands. Some SSRs and URs considered hands-on combat beneath them, utterly refusing to engage, relying instead on directing the S-rank and R-rank as cannon fodder. However, under Elder Luo's decisive measures, no high-level awakener dares entertain such thoughts now. SSRs and URs no longer wage battles with words from the central city of Jojo. Apart from essential personnel guarding the city, Elder Luo demands high-level martial arts leaders to set an example by heading to the front lines to combat enemies. Because the duty of a martial artist is to step forward when Jojo faces peril. High-level awakeners are no longer pampered, they must lead by example. Soon, various formidable masters gathered on Jojo's front lines, alongside Sun Hushuan and Professor Guo, including Fu Mingpu, the Minister of the Alliance's Security Department, Shang Tianxiong, Governor of Liangzhou, Su Yongfeng, Minister of the Alliance's Defense Department, numerous experts of the Su Alliance, and several UR elders who are seldom seen on regular days. Under Elder Luo's command, these people dispersed to each section of Jojo's edge to guard. Not only was the Liangzhou front line staffed, but other states' fronts were also similarly mobilized. The horizon of the wilderness teemed with shrill screams and a sky dense with shadows, towering earth dragons, sprinting purple crabs, soaring red eagles, all sorts of desolate beasts trampling the earth, causing thunderous noises as if it were about to collapse. Elder Luo, upon seeing these eerie scenes, immediately turned and shouted to everyone on the city walls. "Sound the alarm! Prepare to resist the beast tide!" All the guardians and pioneers stationed on the walls felt a jolt in their hearts, not daring to be negligent, and various lights lit up on their bodies. These people possessed different system abilities, most of which were long-range attack capabilities, all set up at the ready. Boom! Boom boom! A few firebirds spewed streams of scorching lava toward the city walls. The lava seemed to scorch half the sky, carrying intense heat as it slammed into the walls. Besides the lava, there was also a substantial amount of purple poisonous gas clinging to the wall's formation defenses. These poisonous gases corroded the formation, sizzling loudly, and even vortices abruptly appeared in midair, with all the spikes rushing towards the city walls. The entire stretch of the city walls was bombarded by various desolate beasts. The walls buzzed from the impact. Fortunately, the guardians stationed on the walls were experienced in facing these beast tides, and they also controlled the wall's formation, beginning to counterattack these desolate beasts. Ice collided with lava, heat waves incinerated the poison, and various arrows turned into swift shadows that pinned the desolate beasts at the forefront to the ground. Elder Luo stood atop the wall, staring into the oncoming desolate beasts, his gaze sharp. An invisible wave transformed into a thunderbolt, shooting into the sky, then suddenly plummeting downwards, striking amid the desolate beast horde. Buzz! This powerful spiritual power, upon hitting the ground, immediately spread out in all directions, sweeping across. In an instant, the desolate beast horde within a 10-mile radius collapsed lifelessly. Amazing! Many of the guardians on the wall were astonished to see Elder Luo take action, their gazes filled with respect. As the protector god of Jojo, he gave them immense security. But ending the desolate beasts within a 10-mile radius was far from enough, as this wave of beast tide spanned thousands of miles. For the massive Jojo battlefront, exterminating these desolate beasts was merely a drop in the bucket. Elder Luo's spiritual power surged out once more. This time, instead of attempting to kill, he set up a powerful spiritual barrier at the front line. When these desolate beasts tried to breach the spiritual barrier, it seemed to disrupt them. Each beast's eyes became confused, soon turning blood red, and roared angrily, pouncing at other desolate beasts around them. The desolate beasts that were initially going to attack the Jojo walls suddenly began to kill each other at the foot of the walls, attacking their companions. Elder Luo's spiritual power altered the desolate beasts' mentality, causing them to lose the distinction between friend and foe, frantically tearing at each other. Letting desolate beasts fight among themselves was extremely effective. However, Elder Luo did not spread this spiritual power more extensively. The walls of Jojo spanned thousands of miles. He couldn't protect all the borders alone, which would consume him significantly. He merely controlled relatively powerful desolate beasts, directing them to slay weaker ones, easing the pressure from the beast tide. Many guardians, seeing Elder Luo's counteraction against these desolate beasts, were also encouraged, all unleashing their abilities from the high walls to bombard these desolate beasts. Professor Guo was methodically commanding the guardians in battle. He was already guarding this section of the walls and, after severely thrashing UR level Hikaiwei back then, had become the chief commander of the Alliance Beast Tide Defense Department. Regarding wall defense, he claimed the #1 spot in Jojo, with no one daring to claim second place. At this moment, the wall formations surged with golden light. The desolate beast's attacks on the walls were repelled by his counterattack ability. The force of these counterattacks was controlled by various guardians, who could direct and precisely strike the desolate beasts. Not only was this battle ongoing here, but almost the entire borderlines of the Jojo continent, including the Liangzhou border, Qingzhou border, Yanzhou border, all the states faced desolate beast attacks, each state having designated commanders directing the fight. This battle lasted for 2 hours before it was finally resolved. The ground before them was a mess, desolate beast carcasses everywhere, a pervasive stench in the air. As the battle gradually subsided, Elder Luo and Professor Guo did not let down their guard. "This is just the first wave," Professor Guo said. Almost every beast tide came in consecutive waves. Once some disturbance occurred in the depths of the desolate realm, all the desolate beasts' territories would shift. For instance, if the desolate beasts in the 3rd danger zone Tranquil Domain suddenly went mad and moved towards the 2nd danger zone Marquis Domain, the desolate beasts in the 2nd danger zone, unable to contend with the Tranquil Domain beasts, could only leave their territory to occupy the 1st danger zone Cultivated Domain. This would force the desolate beasts of the Cultivated Domain to crash against Jojo's walls. This is precisely the first wave of the beast tide. The first wave of the beast tide was relatively weak and not difficult to deal with. For these well-trained guardians, it was not much of a challenge. However, the second wave, third wave, the beast tide would only grow stronger, and that would be the real battle. Everyone stay alert. Rest if needed. Take assignments if assigned. Each post must have personnel. No vacancies are allowed as stronger beast tides may follow. Elder Luo conveyed the order. Having done all this, he turned to Professor Guo and said, "Summon all the Alliance officers. Prepare for an Alliance meeting. Those unable to attend must participate via video. Jojo is entering a state of war readiness." Understood. Professor Guo nodded immediately and sent out the announcement. On Jojo's walls, Su Qiuan and Hu Judy were watching the battle from afar. They had successfully infiltrated Jojo, acting as pioneers, temporarily assisting with the battle on this section of the wall. They had witnessed Elder Luo's display of power. "So, this is the true god of Jojo?" Su Qiuan casually flicked his hand, wiping out a struggling desolate beast, pretending to be a serious pioneer in combat. "Humph. Nothing special," Hu Judy said coldly. You're underestimating. In the edge corner airspace, perhaps, but in the great desolate realm, he's indeed impressive. You should tone down the arrogance. Show some respect," Su Qiuan stated factually. "Should I, a master of the ancestral Dao realm, respect a heavenly connection realm human? Hu Judy coldly sneered repeatedly. Su Qiyuan shrugged and said, "That's the issue. As a master of the ancestral Tao realm, you still can't take him down alone." Hu Judy squinted, coldly glaring at Su Qiyuan, but Su Qiyuan didn't care because he knew Hu Judy couldn't rebut. "All right then, for now it seems Wu Yiming's status in Zhuzhou is quite high. He can get close to Luo Yunxian, so he'll handle the plan to eliminate Luo Yunxian. We just follow his instructions then. Now, we need to find the fragments of the human Tao artifact. Where do you think the artifact fragments are most likely located?" Su Qiyuan, gazing after Luo Yunxian's departing figure, contemplated aloud. "He is Zhuzhou's strongest. If I were Wu Feng wanting to hide the artifact fragment in Zhuzhou, naturally I'd entrust it to him. I think we should just capture this Luo Yunxian, torture him severely. There's no way he won't confess," Hu Judy proposed. Su Qiyuan, while clearing out minor desolate beasts in the Qi controlling and meridian opening stages, remarked, "That's reasonable. Perhaps he did hide the fragment of the human Tao artifact. But for some reason, I feel there is someone else more suspicious." "Who? Do you not have relevant memories?" 8 years ago, Zhuzhou had an N-level prodigy who defeated all SSR and UR levels. Su Qiyuan smiled indifferently, his gaze lighting up with a peculiar glow. "Didn't he leave Zhuzhou?" Hu Judy frowned. Before leaving, Wu Yiming had given them all the data about Zhuzhou as memories, so they had a thorough understanding of Zhuzhou's affairs. But N-level, able to defeat SSR and UR levels. Isn't that odd? Su Qiyuan said meaningfully. "Do you think the humanitarian artifact fragment is on him? He is an N-level, which is impossible to surpass higher-level Tao embryo holders in Zhuzhou. So we can think of it differently. If with the humanitarian artifact fragment, it might be possible. Otherwise, how do you explain him, an N-level, being able to trample SSR and UR awakeners underfoot?" Su Qiyuan said. Hu Judy said, "But he's no longer in Zhuzhou, and we received the guidance from the artifact's main body that the fragment is still in Zhuzhou. Then is it possible that before leaving, he left the fragment behind, so the humanitarian artifact fragment is still in Zhuzhou?" Su Qiyuan said. "Then where would he leave it? Of course, to the person closest to him, right? You mean his grandfather?" Hu Judy leaned against the city wall, organizing the memories in his mind, and said, "But his grandfather is also an N-level awakener, not very strong now. Precisely because his grandfather is an N-level awakener, Xiang Beifei, after using the humanitarian fragment, is very likely to leave the fragment to his grandfather, hoping that his family can also become stronger. This is also why we can perceive that the fragment remains in Zhuzhou. That's what I guess," Su Qiyuan said with a smile. Hu Judy pondered carefully for a moment, saying, "But even Wu Yiming doesn't know where Xiang Qingde is. It seems like he's been protected by Luo Yunxian. That speaks volumes. The humanitarian artifact fragment must be on Xiang Qingde. Or why else would Luo Yunxian protect him?" Su Qiyuan said. Hu Judy glanced at the other busy pioneers around and said, "Then how do we find Xiang Qingde?" Su Qiyuan stretched lazily and said, "Go and ask some familiar people." They exchanged a glance and then, taking advantage of no one noticing, flipped over the city wall and disappeared into the Zhuzhou continent. Liangzhou residential area. The alarm for the desolate beast invasion had already sounded, echoing for a long time in the residential area, disrupting the quiet life of the civilians. With desolate beasts invading Zhuzhou, everyone please gather orderly at the desolate beast evacuation points. Walk together, do not walk alone. If you see any desolate beasts, be sure to report it immediately. The martial arts students from various colleges have already started patrolling the streets. They can't participate in the battle yet, and the task of ensuring the residents' logistics falls on them now. The residential areas are generally inland, quite a distance from the Zhuzhou border. As long as the front line is not breached, they will not be directly affected by the beast tide. But Zhuzhou's border stretches over 10,000 miles, and not every section can be impregnable. Over thousands of years, the border has been broken by desolate beasts countless times, and the human race has lost many territories. Some cities geographically close to the exterior are only a few dozen kilometers from the border. If that short distance were breached, it wouldn't be enough for civilians to escape. So the Alliance has ordered that cities within 100 miles of the border wall must evacuate their people inland. Many city guards have already begun methodically persuading the residents of these outer cities to retreat. But because Jojo hasn't suffered a large-scale desolate beast attack for nearly 20 years, many people have become complacent and don't believe the beast tide will reach here, unwilling to leave. Especially some company bosses. When they hear their employees asking for leave to take their families to refuge, they immediately become discontented. With the beast tide attacking Jojo, naturally, the pioneers and guardians will confront it. That's the martial artist's business. You just work peacefully in the company. Not causing trouble outside is the best help. A man in a suit and slicked back hair was giving a meeting to the company's employees. This boss awakened the SR-level capitalist system, engaged in the liquor industry. Being a capitalist, letting his employees work an hour less would feel worse than death for him. But boss, the Alliance said this beast tide is quite severe. An employee whispered. Severity is also the martial artist's matter. We have martial artists in Jojo protecting us. It's very safe. Absolutely nothing will happen. Desolate beasts won't attack here. Now that other companies are resting, it's a great opportunity for us to achieve our performance targets. Everyone should be grateful for the company providing job opportunities. Prioritize the company's collective honor. And let's work together to improve the company's performance. Those who work hard will definitely be blessed by heaven. The boss was eloquently introducing the superiority of the 9/9/6 work system, teaching employees to be grateful to the company, and promoting the idea that working overtime is a blessing. The employees didn't notice that the boss used his capitalist system ability, Soul Chicken Soup, to stir up everyone's emotions, making these employees suddenly full of drive. What beast tide? What danger? It was all fluff. In these employees' minds, the company's performance was supreme. Only if the boss could eat meat, they could drink soup. We all want to stay and work, many employees firmly stated. They were all N-level and R-level awakeners, unable to resist the Soul Chicken Soup in the face of the SR-level capitalist system, each willingly working overtime to earn their boss a villa. Bam! While the boss was delivering his speech, the conference hall door was kicked open. Blessing, blessing, blessing my big pancake. A sharp figure broke into the conference room, interrupting the capitalist system-awakened boss's address. The boss saw the door flew off and his Soul Chicken Soup time interrupted and immediately roared, "Bold? Who are you? Where is security? Where did the security die? Why is someone barging in without being stopped? I am Lu Jiwei, the chief commander of the Liangzhou City Guard Corps. This city is too close to the border and according to the Alliance's regulations, all inhabitants of this city must evacuate to inland cities. All citizens' work is suspended, and anyone who disobeys the order will be punished for disturbing the peace." It was Lu Jiwei, exuding a sense of righteousness, who burst in. Dressed in the attire of a law enforcer, she walked with an imposing stride, immediately intimidating all the employees in the conference room. Upon seeing Lu Jiwei, the boss, who was fierce in appearance but timid in spirit, responded, "The Alliance must be reasonable in their operations. How could they arbitrarily disrupt official business? Your City Guard Corps should be protecting this city, not driving our employees away. Our employees are willing to stand together with the company through thick and thin. If you don't believe me, ask these employees if they aren't all people who love their work." The boss pointed to the employees who were still in shock. Just a moment ago, the boss's Soul Chicken Soup-like speech had stirred their emotions, luring them in and making each of them feel that the company's performance was more important than their lives. If Lu Jiwei hadn't suddenly burst in and blown the door away, freeing everyone from that emotional state, they might still be thinking of staying behind to work overtime for the boss to earn a villa. Lu Jiwei turned her head and glanced at the bald boss, a sharp gleam flashing in her eyes like a knife, causing the boss's heart to contract suddenly. "I knew you heartless bosses had bad intentions. At the moment of a beast-tide invasion, You still make a joke out of the employees' lives. Lu Jiwei, fuming, strode over and raised her hand to give a slap. Slap. A clear, crisp sound. Ah! Poor boss, even though he was an SR-level awakener, was merely a literary Dao practitioner and had no power to fight back against Lu Jiwei. His face swelled on one side right away. Lu Jiwei, fuming with anger, said, I hate bosses like you who don't care about your employees' lives. Always exploiting employees with nothing but words. You deserve a few slaps. Slap. Frustrated, she slapped the boss again. Stop! Another figure briskly came in, with his presence firm and an authoritative expression. It was Lu Hong, the current chief commander of the Alliance City Guard Corps. The boss, covering his face in horror, shouted, Yes, quickly make this crazy woman stop. She actually dared. She actually dared. Lu Hong sternly stated, Your company is suspected of violating the Alliance's safety regulations. During the Beast Tide invasion, everyone must prioritize their lives. We have a responsibility to all residents, and any company in this city must stop working. Stop working? Stop working. Then my employees will go drink Northwest Wind? Ask everyone here who doesn't have a wife, children, and elderly parents to support. Lu Hong replied coldly, This beast tide comes fiercely. This is already the second wave, with the third wave coming soon. The tides are getting more severe. If safety is breached, there might be no lives left for you all. Moreover, I have found evidence of your company's exploitation of employees, denying overtime pay and deliberately withholding salaries and benefits. You must come with us. But I have evidence of your company's illegal acts. Do you want to taste fists? Lu Jiwei threatened. The boss turned pale with fright and dared not speak again, soon taken away by two people outside. Lu Hong then looked at the employees and said, This city is too close to the border. You should quickly return home, bring your families to gather in the east of the city, and leave temporarily with the law enforcers. We will arrange temporary accommodations for you and provide an appropriate shutdown allowance. Hurry. Yes, yes. The employees hastily stood up and ran outside. After everyone left, Lu Hong turned around and solemnly said, Xiao Wei, how many times have I told you, as an enforcer, you cannot just hit people. You must learn to restrain yourself. Lu Jiwei rubbed her fist and angrily said, Dealing with people like that, only a thrashing will do, otherwise, more people will die. The third wave of the beast tide is already coming and he still wants employees to work overtime? For performance and not caring about employees' lives. Capitalists are all like that, Lu Hong said with some headache. And besides, don't always act so rashly. You are one of the few with S-class talent in the Alliance, reaching the orifice transforming phase before 30. You have a bright future ahead of you. Back then, Beifei specifically helped you create a training plan. It wasn't for you to use like this, otherwise others will take advantage. Humph. Beifei. Huh. That guy. Where has he run off to? Lu Jiwei thought of Xiang Beifei and bit her lip in displeasure. Back then, Xiang Beifei had sent many precious spiritual power crystals and beast pills back to Zhuzhou through Helianjiang and had tailored a special training plan for each person he knew, including the father and daughter Lu Hong and Lu Jiwei. At that time, Xiang Beifei had already realized what the heavenly Tao was. He had unique insights into the essence of all systems and provided guidance for the systems of those friends and relatives he knew, especially concerning Lu Hong's rapid flame. This was the first set of offensive abilities Xiang Beifei had learned and also the one he had the deepest understanding of. After improving it, it brought significant enhancement to Lu Hong's system. In just 8 years, thanks to the abilities brought by Rapid Flame and with S-class talent, Lu Hong had surpassed many SR-level awakeners, reaching the late orifice transforming stage and gaining significant importance in the Alliance. Due to the importance of Rapid Flame, Lu Hong might very well become the first S-class expert in the Zhuzhou continent to step into the Heavenly Connection realm. Now he is responsible for the guarding tasks of all Alliance cities. No longer just a city guard captain of a small district in Liangzhou, but responsible for the security defense of 9 state cities. Meanwhile, Lu Jiwei also stepped into the middle orifice transforming phase with Xiang Beifei's help, only slightly below her father for now, currently serving as the captain of the Liangzhou City Guards. Compared to 8 years ago, she has become more mature and charming in appearance, but her impatient nature hasn't changed much. Because of her strong sense of justice, she often beats up certain people quite badly, giving Lu Hong quite a headache and never changing despite frequent criticism. Lu Jiwei murmured, "Dad, do you think Beifei has found his parents? Beifei is a very special child. Nothing will happen to him. You don't need to worry about him." Lu Hong said, "I'm not worried about him. I'm just, humph. Who would worry about him?" Lu Jiwei seemed unwilling to admit her thoughts, quickly walking outside. She saw a pen that the bald boss had dropped on the floor and kicked it with annoyance, turning it into powder. "Ah, this girl." Lu Hong watched his daughters departing back and shook his head helplessly. Since Xiang Beifei left Zhuzhou 8 years ago, his daughter has remained single and now nearing 30. She still hasn't had a single relationship, which naturally made him anxious as a father, but there was nothing he could do. Lu Jiwei stood in the street, directing the evacuation of the city's people. What she didn't notice was that far away, 2 people stood by a window on a high building, watching her. "This is Lu Jiwei, right? Heard she has a good relationship with Xiang Beifei. She should know where Xiang Qingda is," Su Qiyuan said. They had just been to Xiang Qingda's former home to find him, but Xiang Qingda had moved out 8 years ago, and nobody knew where he went. To find Xiang Qingda, they needed to start with people Xiang Beifei knew. "I'll go grab her and interrogate her," Hu Judy said coldly. "Don't cause trouble. We can't alert anyone. This place is very close to the border, and just now I sense 2 heavenly connection realm auras still in the city. We need to plan carefully." Su Qiyuan stretched and showed a peculiar smile. "Let's be amicable. We can absolutely use normal methods." Under the organization of the law enforcement officers, people on the street were being evacuated in an orderly manner. Lu Jiwei was also maintaining order, personally intervening only when someone refused to leave as instructed. "Elderly and children first, the rest, please step back. There's no need to push. We won't leave anyone behind." Lu Jiwei was both arranging the evacuation and searching house by house. The street quickly emptied, but there were still many holdouts, most of whom were elderly, unwilling to leave their old homes. These people required patient persuasion from the law enforcement officers. However, as she turned the corner towards another house, she suddenly sensed something and frowned. There were 2 shadowy figures peeking around in front of an empty house. "Hey, what are you 2 doing? The 3rd wave of beast attacks is about to hit. Why aren't you evacuating?" Lu Jiwei walked towards the 2, only to discover upon getting closer that they were wearing the clothing of pioneers. 2 pioneers. "Hello. My name is Su Qiyuan, a pioneer from the 11th Squad of the Tranquil Domain Pioneering Department." Su Qiyuan pointed to the nameplate on his clothing to indicate his identity. Hu Judy. Hu Judy's tone was very aloof, but at least it wasn't as annoying as before. In her eyes, speaking politely to this group of weak humans was simply an insult to her noble status. She was already restraining herself. After confirming their identities, Lu Jiwei said, "Hello, I am Lu Jiwei, Deputy Captain of the Liangzhou City Guard Corps." "We know you," Su Qiyuan said with a big smile. "You know me? Haha, the famous prodigy Lu Jiwei, an S-level awakener who reached the orifice transforming stage before the age of 30. Your reputation precedes you. It's a great honor." Su Qiyuan spoke very politely, his demeanor warm and pleasant, not giving anyone a negative impression. "Oh, I see." Lu Jiwei nodded slightly. She was indeed very well known in the Alliance now. Not only her, but her father Lu Hong was also famous in the Alliance because it was quite an achievement for an S-level awakener to reach even the God-refining stage in their lifetime. Both she and her father broke the records in Zhuzhou, thanks to Xiang Beifei. "Shouldn't you be assisting the defenders at the front lines against the beast attacks?" Lu Jiwei asked. "When the beast attacks hit, the city defenders are responsible for protecting city safety, while the pioneers must assist the defenders in repelling the beast attacks. The division of labor is very clear. Lu Jiwei actually also wanted to fight at the front line, but she understood the importance of her job, for if the front line couldn't hold, the city defenders were the second line of defense, so every role was significant. Before the beast attacks hit, we had just returned from a mission in the wilds of the Tranquil Domain. We assisted in resisting the first wave of beasts earlier and were then instructed to rest, Su Qiuan explained. Then what are you doing here? Lu Jiwei asked. We specifically came to find you. Find me? Lu Jiwei didn't recall having any connections with the pioneers. It's like this. Su Qiuan looked around and lowered his voice. You know Mr. Xiang Beifei, right? Xiang Beifei. Lu Jiwei, upon hearing this name, reflexively raised her head. She knew the name so well that she wanted to grab his ear and loudly demand to know where he had been for the past 8 years. She quickly asked, Of course I know him. What's happened to him? Su Qiuan hesitated for a moment, then said, I mentioned earlier, before the beast attacks, we were executing a mission in the Tranquil Domain. We were scouting the situation when we approached the northern district of the Essential Domain. Northern district of the Essential Domain. Lu Jiwei was startled once again. She knew very well about this place now. She had specifically sought connections to understand Xiang Tianxing's records to know Xiang Beifei's whereabouts. At that time, in the limited records on Xiang Tianxing, it was noted that he disappeared while on a mission in the northern district of the Essential Domain. In other words, if Xiang Beifei went to find his parents, he would certainly head to this place. And then, Lu Jiwei asked eagerly. Seeing her reaction, Su Qiuan realized they had grasped something of her psychology. As Wu Yiming's information suggested, this girl's simplicity made her approachable when the subject related to Xiang Beifei. We encountered many powerful desolate beasts in the northern district of the Essential Domain, horrifying beasts there. We were heavily injured and had nowhere to run, so we hid in a cave. Just when we thought we were doomed, someone saved us. Who saved you? Was it Xiang Beifei? Lu Jiwei asked excitedly. Yes, it was him. More specifically, it was a consciousness he left behind. He had set up a special formation there, similar to a pioneering point, which saved us. Then he told us a few things. Su Qiuan deliberately used a mysterious tone. What did he say? Lu Jiwei asked hurriedly. Su Qiuan and Hu Judi exchanged a glance, then shook their heads and said, I can't tell you. Lu Jiwei was stunned. Why not? Sorry, Mr. Xiang Beifei mentioned that this matter is very important and related to his parents. He instructed us to inform only his grandfather and no one else. As he saved our lives, we must honor his request for confidentiality. Then why have you come to find me? Lu Jiwei inquired. We can't find old Master Xiang Qingde, but we heard that Miss Lu Jiwei and Mr. Xiang Beifei had a great relationship back then. So, we thought Mr. Xiang Beifei would have entrusted you to take care of his grandfather, which is also why we came to find Miss Lu Jiwei. We hope Miss Lu Jiwei can tell us where old Master Xiang Qingde is, so we can relay Mr. Xiang Beifei's message to him. Su Qiuan's tone was sincere and genuine, filled with gratitude for Xiang Beifei's life-saving grace and the determination to fulfill Xiang Beifei's entrustment. What we don't understand is, why can't we find old Master Xiang Qingde's whereabouts? Hu Judi asked beside him. Lu Jiwei nodded slightly and said, Xiang Beifei used to be a celebrity, and now that he is gone, we worry about those media-disturbing Grandpa Xiang, so we specifically protected him. Miss Lu Jiwei, could you introduce us? We only want to relay Mr. Xiang Beifei's request. This is very important to us. He saved us, so we must deliver the message. Su Qiuan earnestly said. Lu Jiwei immediately responded, Okay, I will help introduce you. But not now, I must be responsible for escorting these people to a safe city. Other cities have not yet evacuated. Once we are done with these tasks, I will take you there. Hu Judi said seriously, But this matter is crucial. We must find old Master Xiang immediately. Lives are more crucial. Lu Jiwei said sternly, The desolate beasts are attacking. I have my duties. But this relates to the reasons behind the desolate beast outbreak and his parents' matters. We must hurry. Hu Judy emphasized. Lu Jiwei thought for a moment and said, "All right, you go wait for me outside Balin Street at Beifei Park in the West Administrative Region first. I'll come to find you at midnight once I'm done with these tasks." Hu Judy wanted to say something more, but Su Qiyuan signaled her with a glance and said, "Thank you very much, Miss Lu Jiwei. Indeed, we must prioritize the big picture now. We will wait there without disturbing Miss Lu's work." The two nodded before leaving the street. Lu Jiwei watched their departing figures, involuntarily touching her chin, but said nothing further and continued with her task of evacuating the citizens. Liangzhou West Administrative Region, Beifei Park. Beifei Park was established in the name of Xiang Beifei. About 10 years ago, a one-armed crab attack occurred on the street, and Xiang Beifei alone managed to kill the crab, saving countless lives. Later, during the city's reconstruction, a small park was built here, and everyone unanimously decided to name it Beifei Park. Xiang Beifei is highly reputable here as he is a representative figure of N-level rise and a hero who saved citizens. This place is somewhat inland, relatively far from Jiuzhou's border and doesn't need evacuation for now. The residential area is relatively calm, although everyone is aware of the Desolate Beast attack event. There's not much they can do. Besides worrying about friends and family on the front line, life continues. However, a large influx of residents shifted from other border administrative regions here. So even in the evening, the roadside is still crowded and noisy. Liangzhou University's martial arts college students are maintaining order, arranging residences crafted by space systems for everyone, handling people's living needs. At midnight, the city finally calmed down, and the park also seemed much quieter. It's so odd. Not even in Kong's mansion banquet. How did they manage to hide Xiang Qingda? Su Qiyuan sat on the park bench, tapping his crossed legs, puzzled. They had already visited Kong Daming's shop, but Kong Daming and his wife have gone to the front line. Both are retired pioneers, yet when the Desolate Beast attack happens, they unhesitatingly arm themselves again, defending Jiuzhou. Before leaving, they lent the store to the Alliance, using it to shelter residents evacuated from other places. The shop assistants are busy. Su Qiyuan searched around and even scoured Kong Daming's house. Yet nothing was found, still unable to locate Xiang Qingda. They went through so much effort to protect an N-level useless old man. Seems like our guess was correct, Hu Judy said. We'll find out in a moment. Su Qiyuan laughed. Tapping sounds. Footsteps resounded under the shade. Lu Jiwei emerged slowly from the darkness. Su Qiyuan immediately stood up from the bench, saying, "Miss Lu Jiwei, we've been expecting you." Lu Jiwei crossed her arms in front of her chest, gauging Su Qiyuan, without immediately replying. "Miss Lu Jiwei, could you take us to meet old Master Xiang?" Su Qiyuan asked. "It's possible, but there are a few things that need confirmation," Lu Jiwei slowly said. "Miss Lu Jiwei, please go ahead. Speak honestly. Where are you from?" Lu Jiwei raised her voice. Su Qiyuan's smile faltered slightly and said, "Miss Lu Jiwei, what do you mean? Do you take me for a fool? It's clear you're pioneers. Isn't that obvious to me? First, if Xiang Beifei had something to convey to his grandfather, he'd certainly have you go to Professor Luo, not come to me. Secondly, pioneers should never leave their posts at any time, especially during a Desolate Beast attack. No matter the urgency, one shouldn't leave the front line, unless a certain Desolate Beast infiltrated. Then there's the audacity to roam everywhere. Lastly, anyone who inquires about Grandpa Xiang's matters will be captured and punished," Lu Jiwei stated calmly. She unconsciously checked her system interface. Current reasoning accuracy rate, 81.2%. She's not the naive girl she once was, following Xiang Beifei around with a dismal reasoning accuracy rate. 8 years ago, Xiang Beifei specially had Helian Zheng return, integrating system-related reasoning capabilities for her, which she practiced arduously over 8 years, raising her reasoning accuracy from 11% to 81.2%. As soon as these two appeared during the day, Lu Jiwei relied on her keen perceptive ability to sense their abnormality. Though she had work during the day, so she specifically postponed matters to handle them at night. Su Qiyuan and Hu Judy clearly didn't anticipate Lu Jiwei doubting their identities. Su Qiyuan especially, always believing Lu Jiwei to be a reckless girl. Not so meticulous, but the fact proved otherwise. You're surely those annoying ghost mustache of remnant visage, trying to sneak through. Dream on. Lu Jiwei swayed her arms sideways, fists clenched. Explosive flames surged from her arms, emitting dazzling brilliance. Seems Miss Lu Jiwei underestimated yet again. Interesting. Su Qiyuan appeared unfazed, admiringly looked at Lu Jiwei, then smirked mischievously. But you overlooked one thing. If you think you alone can handle us both, that's naive. Your penchant for daring seems unchanged. Daring? Lu Jiwei snorted softly. Su Qiyuan's gaze hardened, promptly turned his head left. A shadow had already stood on the left, half of its body merged with shadows, unclear of features, standing there like a wraith. However, the aura emanating from the other side made Su Qiyuan feel stifled. A heavenly connection expert. Soon, Su Qiyuan sensed another aura abruptly appearing behind them, a second heavenly connection expert. Then rapidly, the front revealed a third and fourth heavenly connection shadow. A total of 4 heavenly connection experts. Su Qiyuan and Hu Judy were taken aback, initially aiming to trap Lu Jiwei, but they unexpectedly fell into Lu Jiwei's ambush. You now have the right to remain silent, but everything you say will become. Suddenly, an intense aura erupted from Lu Jiwei. Your last words.